Education meeting for March 23rd to order. If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, we'll continue with roll call. Ms. Berkmeyer? Here. Mr. Moses?
Here.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Richards?
Here.
Mr. DeRue?
Here.
Mr. Middlestat?
Here.
Ms. Knox here. Okay, we'll move to the approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to accept tonight's agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Support.
Any comments?
Got a question. We've got executive session, review negotiations. Are we doing that before the principal administrators contracts or?
It did get moved. There will likely be a vote following the executive session, but it'll still be at the end. So when we come back after that closed session, there's likely to be a vote.
Right, so under new business, you got 3 and 4. Shouldn't they be after the closed session? You got the contracts before the closed session.
I think it's fine the way it is.
Usually you talk about the contracts and come out and vote on it.
I think that's what we will be doing, but because of how the nature of the contracts are, we'll be getting an update in closed session and then we'll come back out, discuss and vote if necessary.
No, I understand it, but I don't understand why we've got them under new business if we're not going to vote on it to the end.
No, that might be, I don't know if that's an older draft of it because the closed session, then it's 5, 6, 7, which are the administrative contracts.
Yeah, Mr. Middlestat, there was a updated agenda. I think it was sitting on your desk, perhaps when you sat down.
Oh, nice to know. Okay, then I understand.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. We're going to move to a hearing of the public next. If you planned to address the board to submit a brief request. I don't have any requests given to me tonight. Okay. Moving on, our student Congress representative cannot be with us tonight, so we will bypass part E. And we are going to move on to our Kaleidoscope winners with Mr. McDonald presenting those winners to us.
Good evening, board. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce the Kaleidoscope winners. And, most importantly, I'd like to invite up the students at this time and the principals. Teachers, whoever's going to come up with the student, let's bring everybody up and we'll line up and talk about each person and story. And as you know, each year, as we come up here, let's start with elementary and then move to the secondary at this end. Come on up. Everyone's so polite.
Yeah.
All right, I mean, this is why we're here. Let's just make a big line all the way to Mrs. Simon. She won't bite. And Mr. Latona, if you want to go down with this, at the end with Danette, and we'll kind of go in order this way. And also, we want to make sure that the board, we see the Board of Education, right? So we're introducing to them too. So tonight, the Kaleidoscope Winners, each year our students compete and they send in stories to Kaleidoscope magazine so that they can choose winners. And this is our group of winners. And we'd like to take a minute now, introduce each student, and the principal or teacher will tell about their story, and we'll kind of go down the row, and we'll get to hear a little bit about each student. So Mr. Medley, you are going to begin. Tell us a little bit about your student.
Okay, I'd like to introduce Gordon Sandstrom. He's a 5th grade student at Great Oaks. Mr. Vandermeer is his teacher. Unfortunately, he's not here tonight. He'd much rather be here than getting his root canal. But anyways, I was thrilled to see the writing piece that he submitted. Just kind of going through all the writing pieces. It's always an exciting time of the year when we get to evaluate all the, teachers' hard work, students' hard work as far as going through the writing pieces. And he wrote a wonderful piece that was titled A Beautiful Christmas Eve Night. And in reading that piece, you felt like you were actually there with the descriptive language, with the figurative language. And it just really told a nice story, and just like the details and description was very vivid. And won hands down at our school. So congratulations to Gordon Sandstrom on his writing piece.
Hello, Melissa Van Hall from Ashley Elementary, and our Kaleidoscope winner was Selena Lowry. Selena Lowry is a 5th grader at Ashley, and she's in Mrs. Bergeron's class. Unfortunately, Mrs. Bergeron couldn't be with us tonight, but is very proud of Selena in her writing. Selena's piece was entitled The Magic Pen, and it was a very creative piece, a little bit of fantasy. She used a lot of great descriptors and took a great deal of time and detail in her piece. And hands down, it was a winning piece at Ashley Elementary. So we're very proud of Selena Lowry.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Murphy. I'm Lilia Hahn, 2nd grade teacher at McCants Elementary. From the very beginning of the school year, I could tell that Lilia has a true author's voice, and in her writing, all of her personality really shines through. Her winning piece was a personal narrative titled The Snowman, and she tells the story of her and some friends building the perfect snowman and how to get the head all the way up top. I'm so proud of her for all of her accomplishments, and I feel so honored to have a young published author in my classroom.
Hi, I'm Diana Rogers. I teach 5th grade at Laddie, and I had the honor to have this little gal, Ava Barhen. She wrote a piece called Rudolph's Journal around Christmas time. It was an activity of just working on point of view and talking about if you put yourself in that position, which we've talked a lot about with some of the books we've read. She's an excellent writer. She's an extremely hardworking student, very serious, very kind, very thoughtful. And I'm so honored to have her in my room. Thank you. Congrats, Ava.
Good evening, and I would like to introduce Ben Marston. He is a 2nd grader in Mrs. Erickson's class who couldn't be here tonight, but she and I are both so very proud of Ben. He loves writing, and for his Kaleidoscope entry, his title is A Night in the Living Room, and it was very exciting, lots of details, great punctuation, and a fabulous author's voice, so we're really proud of Ben. Thanks. From Lighthouse, by the way.
Hi there, my name is Jacqueline Kingman. I'm Elsa's 4th grade teacher at Maldret. This is Elsa Schwartz. She's a 4th grader. Elsa is a spectacular writer. She does an absolutely fantastic job and is very gifted. Elsa wrote a piece called The Unique Name. It's about a little boy named Zandy who wasn't really fond of his name at first, but with the help of some friends and a teacher, he grew fond of his name, and he learned to know that everything is okay if you're unique and different. Hi, my name is Danette Simon, and I teach language arts at Middle School North. And it's my privilege to teach Liliana Frontera. She's a student in my honors language arts class. And it's evident from the work that Lily presents in class that she's a writer. The winning Kaleidoscope entry that she gave was a poem entitled Hope and Gratefulness. And Lily said she was inspired to write the poem by reports that she'd heard about school shootings. Her poem was poignant, current, and thought-provoking, and it represents our school and our district well. Thank you.
Last but not least, this is Cte Recognition. I'm from Middle School South. It's an honor to present Middle School South's 2022 Kaleidoscope winner, Cte Recognition. Cte wrote a beautiful personal narrative titled How I Got My Dog Charlie. And in the piece, Cte takes us on an emotional journey of the dreams of getting a dog to the moment he was finally introduced to his amazing new puppy, Charlie. Cte explains the process of adopting Charlie and how special it made Christmas 2020. He wraps the story up by saying, "This has changed my life because getting a dog isn't a small impact. It is like getting a brand new sibling, and I'll get to see her for most of her lifetime. And if you've ever experienced getting a pet, you know how magical that moment can be." So thank you, Cte, for taking us on this journey, and congratulations for being South's Kaleidoscope winner.
All right, so once Mr. Latona and Carter get their picture, we're going to do a big group picture. So if we could kind of get up here, I don't know if the board wants to stand in behind.
Yeah, and we have certificates.
Oh, certificates as well. Of course, our Kaleidoscope winners, so they won it at the school, and they will be published in Kaleidoscope magazine. So you're looking at a group of the next generation of Kaleidoscope published authors. One more hand. Come on. Perfect. Parents, if you want to come up closer and take a picture, please do so. This is, come on up. We'll hold it 1 second. Let's let the parents and family friends take a quick picture. Wonderful. And thanks to everyone for coming out and supporting our Kaleidoscope winners, all the staff and students and principals. We're so proud of you students. Great job.
Okay, next we have Ms. Kenward is going to present on our CTE recognition tonight.
Good evening, Board of Education. So every year, as you know, we are able to choose 2 of our outstanding CTE students. And standing in front of you are our 2 outstanding students this year. These students have stepped up to the plate and gone beyond. They are leaders in our program. The first student is Thomas Stackpool. He is an engineering student. He plans after graduation to go to Lawrence Tech. And for those of you that don't know, he was the captain on our winning soccer team. So we're pretty proud of Thomas and all of his accomplishments. The next student is Nicholas Collins. He is a JROTC student. He does a lot of volunteer work in ROTC. He's been in the program for 4 years. And I have to say, I've known Nicholas since he was like this little in second grade. And it's really cool to see what a fine young man that he has grown up to be. So these are two outstanding students. Congratulations.
I think so. That's the expectation. I don't want to support you.
Yes.
Congratulations, guys.
All right, and to round out our awards, we're going to go to Mr. McDonald again for our Teacher of the Year awards.
Well, good evening, board, again, and I have to say this is by far the best award presentation that I get to be a part of each year. And we're going to start this year with the Teacher of the Year. We're going to do them one at a time to kind of give them each a moment, and then we'll do a group picture together. We're going to start by introducing this year's High School Teacher of the Year, Mr. Phil Rickey, and his principal, Mr. Jeff LaPerriere. And I'm just going to quickly say Mr. Rickey teaches math science at our high school. And if you spent time at the high school over the last, 17 years, he's been with us, at an event, it's a really good chance that you'd run into Mr. Rickey at that event, no matter what it is. And he's been involved in countless number of activities. And I'm going to let his building principal, I'm a former building principal of Phil's, so I can just add that is well-deserved award and a teacher whose nomination comes up annually. So, Mr. LaPerriere, please tell us more about Phil Rickey.
All right, thank you, Mr. McDonald. Phil Rickey, he exudes the true TAR spirit. As a lifelong community member and Anchor Bay graduate, he knows what it truly means to be a TAR. Anyone can tell you he loves Anchor Bay schools and its community. From the first day working 17 years ago as a teacher at Anchor Bay High School, Phil has immersed himself in all things Anchor Bay. Since that first day, he has been volunteering his time with student council, student activities, athletics, National Honor Society, and most recently, the Powder Puff Game, which directly fundraises his highly successful Relay for Life team, which has raised over $120,000 to help fight cancer here. Phil is always willing to help a colleague or a student parent with a problem. He has always jumped at the opportunity to assist anyone in need. Phil's philosophy of education is that all students will have the opportunity to learn math and science and become a well-rounded individual in a welcoming, loving, and safe environment. He believes that each student is unique in their own way and needs to be treated with respect and been given a positive and engaging experience in the classroom. Mr. Rickey's classroom is a place where all students feel welcomed and safe, Mr. Ricky's room is an area where students and staff feel comfortable because of his open-minded and selflessness nature. All of this, along with his interesting lessons and thoughtful planning, Mr. Ricky has an engaging classroom. Mr. Ricky promotes positive behaviors inside of his classroom and expects that everyone is treated fairly and respectfully. I'd like to close with a quote from one of his students, Ariana McIntyre. She says the following: Mr. Ricky displays integrity both inside and out of this classroom. He has dedicated his time and talents to teaching. He desires the best for his students. He has fueled students' desire for learning through activities and content that challenges and effectively teaches the material in an entertaining and understandable way. He has made an unmatched impact on his students and fellow faculty members. He is committed to making students feel comfortable in any environment. Any student can approach him with a question, whether personal or school-related, and he is more than happy to help. He takes time to get to know his students and their situations to better understand and build long-term relationships with them, and is not hesitant to give advice. Please help me congratulate Anchor Bay High School Teacher of the Year, Phil Ricky.
Couple other things. I always think of Phil. I think of the Oscar presentation, right? The Oscar awards that we just had, and Pi Day, another thing that reminds me of Mr. Ricky. Right? Congratulations, Phil. Okay, we're going to move to middle school, and I would like to invite Miss Kessel Glassford up, please. Stand wherever you're comfortable. All right, it's my honor to introduce Miss Kessel, and Sarah is a previous winner at the middle school level, and again, another teacher who, as we start talking about Teacher of the Year each year, her name is always mentioned for the many things that she does to help our school. And, you know, when you look at the list of things that she's involved in, I warned her, I said, look, I'm not reading them all. But Sarah teaches 8th grade language arts at Middle School North, and she teaches honors as well in our broadcast journalism class. She is really anchored our 8th grade language arts department at Middle School North for a number of years. And beyond just her teaching in the classroom, that is just, you know, that is enough within itself to win her Teacher of the Year award. But she's involved in a number of other things, such as student council, school improvement. She's a language arts department leader. Someone that, as administrators, we always rely on to help lead our department there. District strategic planning, a couple different strategic plans. Coach softball. I know when we were there to let her know she won, she was in the middle of a Washington, D.C. trip meeting with her students, and I could go on. And I know I left off a few things, but these are just think about what it goes into teaching, that what we know in preparing through the summer and throughout the year, and then to add in all those other things, and to be able to teach the curriculum and build relationships at the level that Ms. Kessel does with her students is really a feat to behold. And I would really like to talk a little bit about again, not only the curriculum, but how far she goes to build relationships by treating kids with respect, by being genuine, by having and showing. That's how she starts each year, building that foundation before she even gets into the curriculum. And I'd like to end with a quote from one of her students, Aubrey Van, who said this about Mrs. Kessel. In Miss Kessel's class, I could be myself. I feel comfortable, and not only have I learned more about reading and writing, I learned more about myself. So that it just embodies what we do as educators. And congratulations to Sarah on her Teacher of the Year. Congratulations, Sarah. All right, at this time, I'd like to invite up Mr. Medley and Ms. Trina Hunt, our Elementary Teacher of the Year from Great Oaks Elementary. And as you're walking up, I'll just give a quick introduction. I know Ron wants to also speak a little bit about Trina. Trina has taught multiple grades in her 21-year career here with Anchor Bay, and she's currently a kindergarten teacher at Great Oaks. And we just recently had our kindergarten readiness night, and Trina is one of the teachers who presented the information at that night. And she's been instrumental in a lot of our curriculum initiatives, including our phonics program. And like many of our teachers, Trina spends just countless hours preparing over the summer to be that first adult that students have, and how important that is for our kindergartners to come in, really for her to set the tone for their educational career and their experience. And I know that that is a responsibility that she takes very seriously. And I just read a statement from one of the parents whose children have had Miss Hunt in the past, and they're just, the student parent said, "I'm so grateful to Mrs. Hunt for starting their student school experience on a positive note and setting them up for success." And really, that's what our kindergarten teachers do, and Mrs. Hunt is a great example of that. And I know Ron wants to say a few more things about Trina.
Okay, thank you. A couple of things to add on to what Mr. McDonald said about Mrs. Hunt. First of all, what you guys don't know about her, he had mentioned that she does a lot of extracurricular type things like kindergarten presentation as far as like transition night. And if you know Mrs. Hunt well, I'm surprised she's not wearing a turtleneck tonight. I always give her a hard time about that, but she's so student focused. She goes out of her element and goes out of her comfort zone and presents and does things for the district and for the building well out of her comfort zone. Because I know she'd like to be hiding in the back right now, and she doesn't like being in the spotlight, but it's your time. So just a couple more things to say about you. And I do have a quick little story. Usually we don't have any disagreements, but I did have a little disagreement with Miss Hunt a week or two ago. And she was talking about, you know, teaching kindergarten. And by the way, kindergarten, in my opinion, two of the toughest jobs in the district is driving a bus and teaching kindergarten. So, and just the job she does there is amazing. But our disagreement, we're talking about mentoring new teachers, which she does mentor just about, you know, a lot of the new kindergarten teachers that we had come through the district and through the building, being a district leader. And we're talking about how tough it is for a kindergarten teacher, how anybody before they taught that grade, they should come in and do observation, welcome in your room. But where we disagreed with that, I told her that Mrs. Hunt wouldn't be a good example to come in to do an observation if you want to see how tough it is. Because she hands down makes it look easy and effortless, taking some of the toughest challenges that I've ever seen. Her class is always in tune, on beat, and just doing everything that a quality teacher does as far as just movement breaks, differentiation of instruction, and being there for the students. And just something else to add on, it was really quick when the team came in to present with the award that day, because there was one common factor between the high school and the elementary that day, and a special little guy over there, Mr. Cooper Ricken. He got to find out his dad was high school principal of the year, and Mrs. Hunt was elementary principal, or elementary teacher of the year. And we decided that Cooper is kind of a lucky charm, he inspires greatness wherever he goes. So, but anyways, I could just go on and on about Mrs. Hunt and all her quality attributes, her being a mentor, piloting programs, just people looking up to her as far as her advice for the district and planning, doing school improvement, and just being a leader in the building in the district. So, and like I said, I could go on, but I know Mrs. Hunt's probably anxiously waiting to get off the stage up here. So great job, Trina Hunt. I'm blessed to be able to work with you, and I've learned a lot from you being your principal over the years. So congratulations, well deserved.
Do we want to get a picture with all three? Of course, no, we have to now, right? Come on up, all three real quick. Let's get a collection of greatness here. Well, she heard collection of greatness, Phil. And don't trip over the cord. Subs are still hard to get.
We are going to take a 5 to 10 minute break here. There are cookies back here. And then we'll begin in about 10 minutes with the business portion of the building. You are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. But we are not upset if you decide to leave, because I know people are busy.
Okay, we will return from our break at 7:42, and we'll go to the superintendent's update.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I have our bond team. We're going to talk about our phase 2 now for our assessment. So I'm going to go down there and grab the microphone. Okay, as we explained the last month, phase 1 was looking at what our needs were and all those things and so we kind of had that broken out over critical needs, short-term needs, and long-term needs. Now this is the phase 2 assessment, and we're looking at the wants. These are the things that will either improve education or make it more efficient for the way that we're operating. And these were our kind of guiding principles, and we'll go through all of these as throughout the presentation. So kind of looking at the Career Pathways Initiative, Media Center and collaborative environments, the elementary school configuration. These are all things we discussed during strategic planning. Facility improvements, classroom technology, and then obviously the cost summary and where do we go from there. So I have Daryl from Barton Mallow is going to talk about the schedule that we've been working on and where we're at this point.
Thank you, Phil. Yeah, just to, I'll be real quick. We have a lot of information to share with you tonight. So just to kind of take a step back, as Phil had mentioned, last month we talked about the infrastructure assessment. That process is still ongoing. We're meeting regularly with Corey to fine tune that to make sure that, when we deliver this in the end, it's going to be the correct projects that fit within that category. So as Phil mentioned today, we're at academic and facility improvements, phase 2. We're going to talk a little bit about next steps too at the end and kind of reiterate some of our next steps in the process. It's been a real collaborative process, and you're going to see from the list of people we have with us tonight, both design experts as well as your educational experts. As we started looking at some of the academic improvements, they obviously are the ones that are going to kind of step forward and bring a lot of those ideas to the table. Phil mentioned the guiding principles. You'll see kind of these themes just kind of reoccur tonight as we're going through the meeting. Again, just that enhancing educational program, that is probably going to be the primary focus tonight. But we will touch on all of these items. So I am going to turn it over to Jeff. There you go.
Thank you. It's an exciting time here at Anchor Bay District. It was a pleasure to be part of the strategic plan and to continue to be part of that. So if you look at our educational goals, which came out of our strategic plan, if you think about our high school, and that's what we want to start with, it's a big building. It's a really big building with about 1,900 kids, just a little bit less. And one question we always ask ourselves, how do we make that personalized and connect it to individual teachers, to our counselors, to our administrative staff? So if you look at this, establish personalized and connectivity learning environments is one of our education goals. The next one is distributed administration and counseling, which is connecting them and us to our students. And then the third thing is to create the career pathway framework. And how can we get our kids to do a couple different things? One, how do we prepare them for college? A lot of kids want to go to college, but when they get to college, they don't know what they want to do. So when you're looking at a career pathway, it does two things for our kids. Number one, it prepares them to something they want to do in college. They take up that field in college and they go forward. Or they try something, they don't like it, their parents don't spend $100,000 to figure that out, and then they go on to college. Or the third option is they're in that pathway, they like it, they go on and get a CTE job or a job out in the real field right away as a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old, making good money. From there, then the next thing would be to maintain the 9th grade wing and honors academy. So within our plan, we wanted to make sure we kept the integrity of the honors academy and kept that within each wing. The 9th grade wing, as everybody knows, 9th grade is still the toughest year when you come into the high school. So our plan has them still in a wing. And with that, what we've tried to do and add for next year is a thing called Link Crew. Link Crew is going to connect a senior as a mentor with a freshman. And we hope with that transition that will help us make a bigger school into a smaller school. And now I'm going to let Ms. Kenward talk about the next two.
Awesome. So this is really exciting, this plan for career technical education. So the first thing that we're going to do, and I know we've been wanting to do this a long time, is we're going to move the programs that are at Middle School South to the high school, which makes perfect sense. For those that know, our students that go over to Middle School South for the 3 programs, they're on the bus for 40 minutes every time. So this will give them more chance to be in the classroom where they should be. So what a career pathway really looks like is we're going to take our 16 programs and we're going to put them in a pathway. So we've broken it up into 4 pathways. Also, what we're going to do is we're going to integrate more career exploration classes, K through 12. So right now we know that our 6th graders, probably about 85% of them, we know that 85% of our 6th graders have probably already picked a career pathway. And why is that? They're going what their mom did, their aunt did, their grandma did. So we want our kids to figure out what they don't like to do before they go to the high school. So with this plan, we're going to be doing a lot more integration.
I don't think it'll be picked up online. They won't hear it. Okay. I see Mr. Side more stirring about, so we'll see what comes up with.
One one of the things that we do know is currently at the high school, we have 1,104 students in our career technical education program. So we know we have the ability to offer more programs, which is really exciting. So before we do that, we would want to get input from our students, what their needs are, and then also from parents. And then we also would look at current fields where the job demands are. We wouldn't want to add a program if when they graduate from college or from the high school, there would be no jobs. So we're going to break up the 4 career pathways. The first one would be engineering, manufacturing, natural science, and agriculture. And you can see currently we already have 5 programs in that pathway. And then we hope to add the 6th program, which would be welding or manufacturing. The next pathway is health and human services. And as you can see, we already have a medical education. We have teacher cadet. We have law and we have JROTC. But we really would like to get more of a niche in the medical field. We would like to offer EMT and public safety, which would be firefighters and police. Arts and communication, that would be broadcasting, foreign language, graphic arts, web design, drama, and more graphic arts. The next path is business and technology, which is your finance, business management, computer programming, marketing, Microsoft Office, and cybersecurity.
Okay, so how does that look inside of our building? Instead of building a brand new CTE building, we figured we could take those pathways and fit them inside of our current building. And again, make that bigger building into a smaller building where you're delivering that personalized curriculum to our students. So this is what the overview of what it kind of looks like right now. Can't really. Okay, here's our lower level. So if you look at the lower level, see if I can do this right. He showed me once. Over here, the south corridor on the lower level is where our current seniors are. And a lot of senior classes take place. Over here in the north court, over here is where our juniors take their classes. And this is what we would like to make it look like in the pathway. So what we want to do is put our arts and communication pathway in this area. So moving our world language classes all the way down. Sorry, trying to, whoops. There we go. World language classes all the way down here. Right now they're spread out in our building, but we could put them right down in here. Moving our graphic arts over here to put them in the pathway. Our art programs right there. This room right here would be our yearbook classroom, and broadcasting is right here. Broadcasting currently sits over here underneath the performance arts area. Now what you see over here is you have all these leftover classrooms, and that's where they would have their core classes. All right. And then the health, human service, and public safety pathway. Again, what we are introducing this year is intro to law. So that sits over here. Our vision right here is to put a courtroom in there because law has a bunch of different parts of it. You know, you can do criminal law. You can just do intro to law, but give those kids the real world experience of being in a courtroom and to be able to debate that. Up here, the public safety, maybe partner with one of our local police officers and have them teach a class. Our OTC then moves over here. Our health is there. And then Ms. Kenworth said our medical education, EMT. We took a trip down to Port Huron, SC4, and in SC4, we went through their health area. And if you look at this little spot right here in the middle, right now, currently, that is where we store stuff for our science labs. SC4, what they've done in the middle right here is they made that into a computer room where they are able to do simulations and actually make the dummies do certain things. And then the kids who are in those classes have to react to it. What a great real world experience for those kids. And then they get to observe it and watch how they react to it. Our vision here is to make sure that our special education kids, because they're going to be in each pathway, that they have a place to go for the resource or whatever. Right here, we're talking about the repurpose of office space. Okay, so currently, our counseling office is right here. In this plan, each hallway, to get to that personalized, would have an office in it. The office would consist of a counselor and a principal. That allows them to run that pathway, number one. Number two, it allows them to connect with the students and the teachers in those pathways. Again, focusing on making a bigger school into a smaller school, making that personalized connections with kids. We know if kids are connected to school and they're connected to their pathway, they're connected to their teachers. When I talked about Mr. Ricky today, one thing they said is they're connected to them, right? If we can get them connected to them, kids will go into school and make sure that they really achieve at a high rate. So going back to the office space down here, where right now we're the counseling, because we don't need it for the counselors anymore. But what we would do is we'd make this into a meeting room that we can do a bunch of other different things. The main office would stay the same, but we might reconfigure the back of it to look at to put our psychologists and our social workers there. All right, so that's what the lower level would look like. Again. So the East Wing, it's probably one of my most exciting wing because we get to do a lot of good things down here. But the East Wing, if you know, that's where our band is, our choral right now, our drama, our gym's there, our construction trades room is down there, our medical education is down there, our graphic arts right now is down there. So this is the exciting part because we actually get to bring over from south the shoreliner. And with that, right over here, we have to add on to the building to make the shoreliner for our community. Right now, we have an intro to foods class. We will move that right here next to it. That's currently where we have Compass Point, so that we could run our intro to food here, and then our culinary arts program right here, and have our shoreliner right here as well, so our community can enjoy that. Also, the shoreliner could be enjoyed by our teachers throughout the week to give them more that real world experience. Moving down here, construction trades. Currently, they have a lab right here. We would move them across the hall, add on to the back of it right here, make it much bigger. Their computer lab would be in here. They'd be able to do their construction trades down here. Auto would then move over where I think it was intended to be, but we are going to add on to it because in front of that, we want to put a welding shop. Engineering would be down here where medical education is currently. We would add our robotics program down here. We currently have a robotics team after school, but we don't have we have robotics, I think, in STEM right now, but we'd move it here. And then horticulture would be right over here as well. Band, what we plan on doing with band currently right now, this area right here, are individual band rooms for kids to practice and perform in, 1 or 2 kids. We are going to move that out of there and put it in the back of the band room. They also have over here a storage area, and the storage area right here is for them to have their marching band uniforms. We would move these to the back of the room because today, or I should go back to when it was built in 2004, we didn't have to watch kids as much as we do now and today. So we kind of have to have them in the classroom, but be able to still give them that opportunity to practice and perform individually in a room. Also, there would be a storage room back here that was added on, and we're hoping to put a big garage door right here so that when they have marching band, they can march their stuff right out to the field. Let's see, again, there's the special education room in that wing. That's the office in that wing. Collaboration space. Okay, collaboration space, and I think we're going to talk about it a little bit when we get to the media area. But think about a collaboration space, getting a group of kids to come together, because every job that we have today, they have to collaborate. We have to be able to talk to one another. So having that open space to be able to do distance learning in there, to have them to be able to collaborate and work with one another, we would convert some of them into that. And I know they're going to get into more detail, so I won't talk too much about that right now. So that's what that would look like overall. Now we're going to go upstairs, the east wing, upper level. Again, this is the business marketing technology area. So think about right now, currently our school store is down here. So when they walk in, the school store is right there. Our vision is to put it up, take the media center and use about 3/4 of the media center and make that a collaborative space right here and put the school store right there. We want that to be the hub of the school where our kids want to come all the time, all day long, lunchtime, before school, after school to use it. It also gives our school store a chance to be open really more often, to be open all day long. Think of it more like an area that where you would walk into Starbucks and you would have a flexible seating in here. And that's where our kids are, charging stations, et cetera. Then the school store would be attached to the marketing class. Okay, marketing class, because that goes with the school store. And then right down here, we would start putting our computer program, our business management, web design, computer technology, cybersecurity over here, esports. Esports is growing rapidly. I mean, we have over 200 kids that want to take it every year. So that would be a big one right here. Again, the special education wings. Again, they would have an office in every wing with a principal, counselor in it, secretary. And this is where the media center would look. We would still use the media center, but the utilization of the media center in today's day is not what it was in 1980, 2000. It is totally different now. We still want to have one. It would just be part of it and it would look a little different. And I think they're going to go over that soon too. And then again, there's your collaborative space for up there for our kids. That's what the east wing will look like. All right, I think ooh. I had to go back, right? So I know I don't think there's not a slide in here for this one. I don't think. This right here is still our freshman wing. The freshmen will have all their core classes in here. Okay, this is where they'll do their link crew. They'll have a redesigned office right over the principal again, and our special education classrooms. So that part will not change. That's an overall view of what it looks like. And I think now I'm up to middle school south.
Take this over to this slide. Okay, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. As a former coach, I had a dramatic pregame speech to give you guys, but Mr. Jankowski said, I want you to dial it back. So I'm going to touch on really the bottom two, the one, Anchor Bay culture and the increased educational opportunities for our students. And like Jeff had mentioned, one of the things that we wanted to create is how do we add the educational experiences, connection to the high school, and then build a common culture between the two middle schools. So with the career exploration experience at South, we would offer a dynamic, project-based, experiential approach to learning. We currently offer STEM classes in design and modeling, green architecture, energy and the environment, medical detectives, app creators, and then maker space is coming in the fall. So with the proposed bond, we would transform South into a hands-on career exploration experience for all middle school students, both North and South. With the addition of robotics, intro to auto, because auto will be moving over to the high school, intro to culinary arts with the existing shoreliner. We will integrate students into the career pathway framework offered at the high school. We'll also be integrating the vision of career preparation at the middle school level. This is also an opportunity, a great opportunity for us to create a one Anchor Bay culture at the middle school. Both North and South students coming together for increased educational opportunities. For me, the thing that excites me the most beyond those opportunities is the assimilation of our cultures, for me. And it's from competition to collaboration. That's what I love about this. Our North and South kids coming to South and taking classes together. So that's just a snapshot of what will happen, or what could happen. And if you see in the back of the building, let's see if I get it to work. This right here was our STEM wing already. This is where the auto shop currently is. This is where our project Lead the Way or STEM classes are. This is where the maker space class would be in the fall. Robotics. would come in this area. And then this is the Intro to Culinary Arts, which is where the shoreliner currently is and be moving over to the high school. So Ms. Kenward will speak on the programming highlights.
So to piggyback off of what Mr. Latona was saying, this is where it's really exciting by having the career exploration in the middle schools. When our students go to the high school, by the time they're in 10th grade, they're going to be able to pick a career pathway because of all that work that we've done in the elementary and the middle schools. So because they're able to start their programs sooner than later at the high school, they're going to be able to be involved. They're going to have a 4-year plan. So when they're in the middle schools, they're going to be working on their EDPs, which is their educational development plan. You can see that they're going to have more opportunities to do partnerships, job shadow, guest speakers, more hands-on, work-based learning, which is formerly called co-op, and many field trips. And what's really exciting that's actually coming down from Perkins 5 is all of our CTE programs before a student graduates, they're going to be able to get an industrial ready certificate. So for example, our medical education students currently next year, when they graduate, they actually could get a certificate in patient care technician. Same thing with our construction trade students next year. They would be able to set for the 60-hour pre-licensed Michigan Builder certificate. So we're going to see more and more of this, and part of this plan will allow our students to benefit.
So just pivot a little bit and piggyback off of what the building administrators have laid out a little bit so far. Because to me, they were explaining the what and the why. And I want to talk a little bit about the where, because this second phase of the assessment was looking beyond just the mechanics and the infrastructure of your facilities and really assessing the learning environment itself and whether or not it is equipped and shaped and sized appropriately for what you're trying to accomplish in the way of education. So just very quickly, in today's learning environment, we really try to create 4 different types of spaces. The upper left hand, the large group instruction area, that's one that we've done for decades and really, centuries now. The classroom environment, if you will, is well established in the footprint of all of our buildings. But the other 4 are ones that we've seen come on the horizon in recent decades, and we're really looking for new ways to incorporate those into the footprint of your building. So the small group collaboration areas where you might have 5, 6, maybe up to 10 students working together. The independent, individualized areas where it might be an individual student up to maybe 2 or 3 students working in a more quiet setting. And then the lower right-hand corner, life applications. That's where we allow kids to, apply what they're learning, to get messy. It's the STEM aspects. It's the maker spaces. Those are what we're talking about there. So as we walk through the facilities, we're looking for ways to enhance and develop maybe some of these spaces, improve them or find ways to put them into the footprint of the building. One of the areas that I see, and you're not uncommon, in many schools today, media centers in general have become somewhat underutilized in many cases. If you walk into them on any given day, now I realize part of this has been due to COVID the last few years, but even before that and after that, I think you'll see that they have become somewhat underutilized spaces. Certainly, there's still an area where reading and a resource collection is housed, but beyond that, we want to look for a way to make them, more visible and flexible for other activities. We do want them to remain the learning hub of the building, and obviously technology and audiovisual components are still, housed and or leveraged in that location. So what does that look like? In many cases, this is just a visual example of taking and just really leveraging furniture in many ways, or ceiling features or floor patterns to define some of those different zones within the footprint of the media center, and not just have it be the library, if you will, but really have other purposes and leverage other opportunities for students. So what I tried to do is just conceptually overlay some ideas onto, in this case, this is the high school, and this dovetails a lot with what Jeff was talking about. For instance, the idea of taking and, locating the school store and a cafe within the footprint of the media center, weaving throughout that footprint those collaborative areas, and then having certain zones that are still appropriate and needed in the media center, like a tech zone, like a reading zone, like a meeting zone. So again, we're not erasing those existing functions, but we're adding to them and enhancing them within the footprint of your existing buildings. Similarly, this is showing Middle School North, and here the idea would be to potentially move some of the computer lab spaces out into the classroom rooms. Again, create reading zone, project zones. So those are the life application areas that I referenced earlier. You still have that big, large meeting space in the middle, and then you carve out tech zones. Again, in this case, specifically to do that, we would need to relocate the broadcast studio to another place within the building, and to enlarge, because the footprint at Middle School North, even though it's a fairly large building, the media center is quite small for that building. So to grab some additional space would actually encroach out into the hallway, and what was once the main entrance to the building is kind of an unused pocket of space now. We pick up some of that collaboration area within the footprint of the building by doing things like that. And then lastly, just looking again at Middle School South, in this case, creating that collaborative zone across the front of the meeting space, tech zones, the large study, project zones. There we think we can house a broadcast studio adjacent to the media center. And again, I should probably mention that these are all just very conceptual diagrams. We've talked a little bit with the building administrators about it, but obviously as we get deeper into this, we'll become much more detailed. But the idea right now is to make sure that we can create those opportunities for our students within the footprint of the building. So we will continue to look at each of these ideas. How does that work at each of the elementary schools as we move forward? Another area that I think is an exciting opportunity for our district is to not only have those spaces exist within the footprint of the building, but actually extend beyond the walls of the school to an outdoor classroom space. So we've looked at the idea of creating that type of space at each of the sites, where and how we can incorporate that into the planning. And it can either be an actual outdoor classroom in some areas. Sometimes it's actually adding a specific type of play equipment that has a STEM aspect to it within the footprint of your existing play areas. And then in some cases, we would actually cover that so that it makes it a little more friendly for the students to be outside on certain days. And then certainly a large part of that is technology, and that's where you know when to tap out and give it to an expert in that area, and that's Paul.
Thank you, Dale. For those of you that I haven't met, I'm Paul with Barton Mallow, and I've gotten the opportunity to spend time with your bond steering committee, as well as Tim and his department and the principals, talking about what technology might look like in some of these new re-envision spaces. And to summarize, your technology is very much like your facilities. Some of them are aging. Your departments do a very good job of keeping things up and running. They were probably put in for very good reasons, but some of the solutions just don't do what you're looking for them to do from a curriculum standpoint. So I want to walk through one classroom. This is just a typical classroom at South Middle School, and use it to explain one possible way that technology could look moving forward. First, we have to make sure that the infrastructure is in place. And this was part of last month's presentation, but you have your new wireless infrastructure that's going in. We need to make sure that the cabling's in good shape, upgrade the network, the data center, et cetera. We also, though, need to replace the PA systems and the master clocks. If you walk through your buildings now, you might find 5 different clocks that show 5 different times. And a PA system isn't just about calling, Johnny down to the office anymore. It's one of your core security features. And most of the newer systems have functionality for emergency notification and emergency communications. Your phone system is aging. While most of your technology isn't in dire needs of replacement today, whatever you end up doing in this bond proposal is going to be a 6-7 year project, and most of your systems over that time would need to be replaced. When we think about replacing equipment, it's the teacher computer, making sure that they have something that's reliable and up and running. But we would like to replace your existing TVs, your existing projectors with something that's new and a little bit more classroom focused. Projectors and computers are great, but for the most part, they're instructor focused, they're presentation focused, they're tools like this in this room. They're not necessarily the collaborative tools that Dale was starting to talk about and your teachers are looking for. If we replace them with a large interactive display, it's not just a TV. Think of it more like the biggest iPad you ever saw. It runs apps. People can use it collaboratively. It's there for more than just the teacher to use. Most of your classrooms have document cameras, but everything isn't digital. So making sure that you have a way of showing student artwork and pieces on that equipment is important. Expanding student access is very important. Right now, you either have to take students down to computer labs or think next Tuesday, I want to do something with laptops for my kids. And so I'm going to schedule one of the carts if they're available to bring it in. You lose that opportunity for off the cuff, somebody wanting to look up something or just a project that happens. And one of the benefits of those interactive displays is any one of the students can also take that over, show what's on their devices. You can have multiple students. So that collaborative learning environment that Dale started to talk about, everybody can start to share their ideas together. Sound amplification might not be obvious, but a lot of the research shows it's one of the best ways to impact a learning environment. If you think about it, if a teacher has to stand up in front of a large group and talk with that loud voice, what does that do to that classroom environment? It heightens it just a little bit. And if you're not doing that, the kids in the back can't hear and they might be missing out on pieces. So something as simple as a good classroom sound system is important to make sure that everybody has the best learning opportunity. And lastly, it's just thinking through some of those nuances. So, that right now, when you shine on your marker board, that doesn't really help anybody who's, height challenged. And if there's kids in front of you, you can't necessarily see over them. So we would do things like, if you watch this, a height adjustable display that could lower itself for some of the younger kids. But it's also important at the high schools to be able to raise it up higher so that you can see over everybody and make sure that everybody has an equal opportunity to see the screens. And lastly, oops, I skipped over. Nope, it didn't get it added, but wanted to echo something that Dale said. When you think about those spaces like the media center, the collaboration spaces, and there was the example before of thinking of it like a Starbucks, whenever you see those spaces, it's usually kids on their devices, kids on laptops, and wanting to brainstorm in a way where they have some shared screens that everybody can see together. So those are things that would be planned into each one of those spaces.
Thank you. One of the things as we began this process and we started looking at, we really evaluated all levels of the buildings that we have throughout the entire district. And then we noticed that Anchor Bay has existed as a district from 1949. So as part of that, you can see on the upper right-hand corner, I should say, we have a series of buildings that were built when the district started. It's kind of the first generation. And that goes all the way back to 1949, 1950. And what we know is this is something the state and even nationally they've been dealing with, because the typical life expectancy of a building, according to the US and the State Department of Education, is they consider it 60 years. And so we are quickly approaching for a set of buildings that we're moving past that. So then the whole discussion was, we kind of took a two-tiered approach of, one, we could put money into buildings that currently exist. And then the other option was, well, what if some of them are reaching their end of their natural life expectancy, what can we do? And we also had the next generation, you can see there on the right. We added buildings. So in 1998, 99, 2001, so that's when the high school came on, Great Oaks and McCants, early childhood, high school in McDonald, and transportation. So now we're here in 2022. And the decision is, what do we do for the next generation? So when we really looked at this, and this has taken a long time, and we've looked at, I don't know, probably 150 different scenarios on this. But these were the goals that we kind of took place. We want to reduce the average age of the facilities. We want to reduce the square footage as much as possible in order to kind of lower our operating costs. Balance our student population, which we'll get into in a second. Correct our geographical concerns, which we'll look at. Lower operational costs, and then utilize our key existing investments. So the money that we've put in already in previous bonds, we want to make sure that we're maintaining that and not trying to get rid of something that we just put money into. So really, we're at a crossroads when it comes to the elementaries. So there's kind of, every time we looked at it, it came back to these same two questions. So do we address the facility needs by updating current facilities, remaining in the current footprint, or do we update the facilities by reconfiguring the current building structure and then try and expand educational opportunities? So, and it's kind of, it's one of those nexus points that you hit where we have really two clear paths. We have one choice, and whatever we do, we have to live with it for 20 years, because if we take option one, there's costs that are going to go with that, and the same thing with option two. So Yolanda here is going to kind of talk about some of the educational goals that we had with us and talk about where we are now and how we got to that point.
Okay, so, I've been in the district a long time. I went to school here as a student. My children came through. I've been a teacher, I've been a principal. So I've had all the different roles possible pretty much in the district. And I can speak to what pretty much every building looks like inside, having taught in most of those buildings or worked as an administrator. And these are some things that the principals, when we came together, we kind of all talked about. And the first one was probably the first thing that came out of all of our mouths. And that's the equitable classroom square footage. If you look at the classroom sizes of like McCants and Great Oaks, and then you look at the classroom size that you have over at Lottie, at Naldret, Ashley, their square footage per classroom is much smaller. And what we know, and as you've been hearing through this presentation, is, education has been changing. It's been evolving. We need our students to be able to collaborate. We need space for them to be able to do that. And I know that when I taught out here at McDonald for a while and at McCants, I had that larger classroom. I was able to create spaces where kids could have flexible seating and move around and collaborate with other classmates. In the buildings, like when I went to Naldret, we were squished. It's tight. It's really tight. So it doesn't offer for those same educational opportunities in the same way. So that is one of the first things that we thought of, that we really thought we need to make it more equitable for our students. The other thing is student support resources. That's looking at our school psychologists, our speech therapists, our school counselors. Right now, the smaller buildings, they get them a couple times a week. If it's not your day and you have something that goes on, well, the administrator does the best to deal with it, or you end up having to call over to the other building and have them come over, and now the other building's lacking that. So really looking at how can we have those support services available in the building every day. Also improving student offerings, and that refers to our specials teachers. They're also in the same position where the smaller buildings, they're going, once a week.
personally, like in my building, I have 3 different PE teachers because we're a small building, we kind of got all the leftovers. The bigger buildings got placed first. And it's just because, you know, they can only teach so many sections and the sections are spread out throughout the district. So we want to be able to have those teachers be able to build a rapport with the kids. Well, right now, and I have 3 different PE teachers, and next year, who knows, that changes every single year. You're never sure. And so that rapport is not being built. So that's another important feature that we were thinking, you know, really needs to be kind of thought about as we're going forward with this. Also, you're thinking about opportunities for teacher collaboration. Classroom teachers need to be able to have teaching partners that they can work with, that they can collaborate with, that they can work on the curriculum together, that they can maybe do some language arts, like switching the kids around, differentiating based on their reading levels and things like that. When you have the smaller school sizes where you only have 1 to 2 teachers, that makes it very difficult. When you have 3 or 4 teachers, it makes it a lot easier to do that. That also goes to highlighting teacher strengths. It also gives that ability to look at the individual students and say, okay, which teacher would they, you know, best suit with, you know, maybe academically, how their personalities would mesh and things like that. Even dividing up students, it's very difficult when you have those smaller buildings and there's not those other opportunities like that. This next one, the ADA compliant toilet rooms. Our older buildings do not have that. Because they're grandfathered in, we do have an ADA compliant bathroom in the building. So like at Naldret and at Lottie, unfortunately, that bathroom is like way down by the cafeteria. The classroom bathrooms are really small, like they're like in an airport, in an airplane or something. They're really tiny. So that's not ADA compliant. You have a child in a wheelchair or something, they're having to go down the hall to go to the restroom. So that's another thing to be considered. But in all of this, we don't want to lose that small school atmosphere feeling. That's the one thing that Anchor Bay has been known for all along, is our tight-knit community, our closeness of our students. And so that is one of those things that we still want to make sure that we emphasize and we look at as we move forward with this. So this is our current configuration right now, where we have the high school, the 2 middle schools, and Lighthouse, Ashley, Great Oaks feed into north, McCants, Lottie, and Naldret feed into south. And here is our, this is the breakdown for the borders for the elementaries. And as you can see, let's see if I can get, you can see the lines and how they're kind of like all over the place. And you can also see some colors of the flags. And I'll explain that. This is the middle schools and the lines for the middle schools. Whoops, let me go back. Okay, and I thought there was one more slide here. The thing that's always been a question to many, many of us has been, why does McCants up here in the north end of the district go to middle school south, way down here? And I know that when the middle schools, and you know, there was originally a time when McDonald was an elementary too. McDonald went to middle school north, McCants went to south. Well, when they joined schools, McCants continued to go down to south. And McDonald kids also then started going to south, where south had more room. North is a much, population-wise, had many more students. But as a parent, I would question, why is my child from up here having to go all the way down there? And so that has always been kind of a question that's come up, and can it make sense?
I can answer that question. There was a community parent group that got together at that time, and they decided, instead of sending, what made more sense was Great Oaks going to south because it was on the border, and the top districts would go to north. They decided, and the category was, for diversity standpoint, they wanted the northern group to move to the south. It was a community input. The board didn't really agree with it, but the community said that's what they wanted, and that's what we ended up doing. So that's why I've never agreed with it, but that's where the decision came for that, because it came from a parent community group. It was called the middle school redistricting at the time when we built the high school and reconfigured Lighthouse back to an elementary and made south and north. So that's the answer to why that's that way. It's not the right way, but that's what happened. So what happened is, because of that, the growth areas ended up all being inclusive within the north boundary. So that's why north grew and south didn't grow as much. And that's why you got the one building was so much smaller than the other one, because if you would have put the Great Oaks kids into south and balanced it, they would have both grown probably appropriately the same. But that's just the basic history. So.
Which I hear you and I understand, and I think it's time to look at what's the right thing for our district then. If that was what the focus group had seen at that time, I think that our new message has been, let's make sure that we're making things right. So, because there's a lot of talk about, why it's like that and what's the right way to do it. And I also have to say, you're looking at Title I schools too, combining those. So, but thank you for sharing that history.
Thank you. So again, going back to looking at all these operational goals as we do that on top of the educational goals. So we went through, again, just dozens of scenarios. And the one that we kept coming back to, because it hits probably the best on not only the educational goals, but the operational goals, is this. One, again, back to that crossroads. Where we're at now with this bond program here, we have a decision on what we're going to do over the next 20 years. And so part of our recommendation is going to be looking at building new elementaries, or actually building on to the elementaries and replacing the parts that are in excess of about 60 years. And so there is an upfront cost to this. And you'll see that with the orange line here. However, like with Ashley and Lighthouse, we have two schools, and this, I get questions from parents all the time. Why do you have two elementary schools right across the street from each other? And we also have the most in-district schools of choice between those two. So we have about 70 kids that go from Lighthouse to go to Ashley, and about 60 some kids that go from Ashley to Lighthouse. And so looking at this, then the other option is the blue line, which is maintain them where they're at. So now this would be putting these buildings that are 70 and 73 years right now. At the end of this bond cycle, they're pushing about 90 years. And so we could put some money into them now, but looking at the long term, this goes back to last month when we were looking at the phase one of what needs to be done. Those operating costs just continue. And then ultimately, we're looking at a point in about 20 years where we're still stuck with a 9-year-old building now, and the same smaller classrooms, the same bathrooms that are not ADA compliant and all of that. And so what do we do if we're making a decision for the next 20 years? And you can see that it just came back to, while there's a short-term cost, long-term, you can see it's about a 20 million savings, and that's in today's dollars. So if you forecast out what the cost of building and so on is going to be out later, you can kind of have an idea that it makes it even more sense to kind of look at what we can do to kind of upgrade our buildings now. So one of the key concepts that we have is to look at combining Ashley and Lighthouse at the Ashley site, combine Lottie and Aldred at Aldred, and then realign our facilities geographically. So what you would look at is you'd still have the high school, you'd have the two middle schools feeding in, but now you'd have a new elementary in McCott's feeding into north. You would have a new elementary in Great Oaks feeding into south. And again, we would also be upgrading McCott's, like the library, and adding some of those things at those buildings. So we're also going to upgrade these buildings because they're about 20 years old. So their life expectancy is much greater than the other current elementaries. And the same thing with the upgraded, what we're doing at North and what's we're doing with South. Now there's just better alignment. In fact, by doing this, we'll be within 10 kids, 10 students of each other on the projected enrollment for middle school North and middle school South. The other part of this is the proposed configuration. So again, we're going to try and look at rectifying what there was before, because right now, from an efficiency standpoint, we have, so if you look back, I'll go back to it just so you can see the comparison here. So Lighthouse and Ashley, they actually overlap each other. It's like interlocked fingers. So we have buses going down the same roads, going to different buildings and so on. And same thing, we have, there's a mixture here across between Lottie and Aldred. So now what we do by combining them into one building, we would now have this efficiency of now kids are spending a much less time on the bus. They can get to each of the buildings. There's greater efficiency there because again, with North and South, our plan is with now CTE focus in at both buildings, we will have students going there. So we don't need more service in order to kind of give kids equal opportunity between those. Same thing if you look at the south end, Lottie and Aldred, by combining into one site, same thing. We get a greater efficiency. Our population center for this south end is about right here. And that would put them closer proximity, shorten bus rides along the way. Same thing with the middle schools. You can see because every time, and God love this parent, there's a family that lives right here and calls me about every other month and says, why are my kids on the bus for an hour? I don't understand. Because by the time they pick all the students up here, they're getting up so early to go down the south. This would be able to rectify that. It would also balance us for growth because I don't know if you're aware, but right down the street, there's 140 houses that are going in right now. So McCott's would still be one of the smaller elementaries, but with future growth going in here, and then we're all aware of the work that's going in along the 26-mile corridor, which also will lead to growth. So it builds just the capacity for, again, that we can balance this area out. So with the other buildings, and this is something Dale will get into in a second here with the new, we would repurpose Lighthouse, at least the newer sections that we've put up in the last 20 years or so for a childhood center, because this has been another nagging thing that we had through strategic planning. Because of changes in growth, because of changes in program and so on, we have constantly been moving our early childhood program. So we do have the early childhood building. It's not large enough for all of those. So we could finally bring all of those under one roof. And then because of that, we would not be bumping these classrooms from building to building, from area to area every single year, because it's just one of those things. We can expand our early childhood. We have waiting lists for everything, which we talked about earlier in the year. We need the ability to grow and add on to that. And this is a good chance to leverage available space to do that. The plan would be to continue administration, at least throughout the bond process at McDonald. We still are in discussions about continuing the China Link program potentially. And the other thing is we don't know how, with COVID and people working from home and the hospital going in and so on, that would give us the ability for growth at this end. The reason that we didn't really look at this is, again, it's a transportation for how long it would take if we moved kids. Now we would have more kids on buses for longer periods of time. And between the St. Clair early childhood programs we have here, administration, and the China Link program, this building, we could maintain its capacity. And then Sugar Bush would still be repurposed. Right now, we'd have our early childhood center in part of that. So again, as we're looking to consolidate that and potentially do a partnership with Chesterfield, we would use that. And again, that building is close to 60 years old. It's reaching the end of its life expectancy for a school building. And that would give us some more opportunities. And then towards the end of this proposed bond, we would look at the early childhood center currently as we move those programs out. And then we'd have to make a decision at that point of what do we do, whether it was originally built for an alternative ed. So it's either alternative ed, is it something where at that point we have to reopen this structure? And if we do that, then that could potentially be an administration building as well. So Dale's going to go more in depth on some of the concepts with the elementary school configuration.
Thanks, Phil. So as Phil already explained, you have buildings that are now approaching 60, 70 plus years old. But we all know, I had the opportunity to be personally involved in many of the additions to some of those buildings are quite a bit newer. So the planning that we started to look at was, is there a way to take the old parts offline, but still keep in play or in place some of the investment that your community has made in those newer additions. And so this is a beginning, a first pass at studying how to do that. So the idea of combining Lighthouse and Ashley at the Ashley site, we would actually keep some of the newer areas that have been added, like the kitchen and cafeteria, stage, music room. There's a bank of some newer classrooms up in here. There are parts of that building that are newer. So what we would look at is taking the classroom areas offline, if you will, because those are the old parts of the buildings. There's no realistic way to make the classrooms bigger, like was discussed in the goals. There's no easy or practical way to make small airplane-like bathrooms ADA compliant. So we just really would look at how do we take those areas offline. So we could begin to add new classroom wings and some of the specific areas around the footprint of the building. And then, you know, this is where Barton Mello really early our stripes and from us phasing and staging plan and construction, but we think it is doable. It'll probably keep Darryl and others up quite a few nights figuring it all out, but we do think it is feasible to build around that and then take offline and then backfill with this other classroom wing, ending up with that one, what we're calling a new combined Ashley and Lighthouse Elementary School. And it does fit on the site. Obviously, we want to make sure that it fits on the site. It's a bit snug, but it certainly is doable from my perspective as a planner. And so we would look at, you know, you see now the footprint of what I just showed you. We know that we want to rework things like parent and bus loops, reestablish play areas, but that site is large enough to house that combined elementary school on that property. Similarly, at Margaret, again, we have some new areas like the gym and cafeteria. You know, we've got a bank of classrooms. There are some, this one's a little more complicated in my opinion, but it is also doable. Again, we can, in this case, create both classroom wings without impacting the existing classroom areas, and then take those offline, demo those, and backfill with the special areas around that. Again, what is a simple little diagram would be a very complicated planning exercise, working with the district and the contractors to figure out how this will work. But from a planning perspective, it is doable. And again, if you look at the site, we can actually fix some of the traffic concerns that you have at that site by extending down the other side of the building with some new traffic loops and things like that. And again, it will fit. So a combined Margaret and Lottie building could take place at that site. Lastly, Phil mentioned the idea of how to repurpose Lighthouse, because I'm sure you're familiar that a good chunk of that, kind of the north half, if you will, is fairly new. This whole bank of classrooms is one of the more recent additions to the building. And it's a newer section of classrooms over here that have had, well, these two are actually the newer kindergarten rooms, and then these have had quite a bit of investment in them over the years that we think is of value and salvageable, savable, if you will. This is the old, 70-year section that we would take offline. So we do think that building could turn into a very nice early childhood center. We'd have to make some adjustments to the classrooms because they were designed originally as middle school classrooms, so they don't have the bathrooms that early childhood rooms would need. So we have to create some type of adjacent area to the wing for that purpose. But again, this is very doable in my opinion. And one thing I would say is that if you are looking at other districts, a very common thing you're seeing right now is they're putting a lot of attention into their early childhood centers. They want them to be the focal point of their district. They want them to be on-ramp for their district. And so they want it to be very attractive and purpose-built for early childhood center. And I think there's a great opportunity to do that with Lighthouse.
Thank you. And just kind of, just want to go back one thing, like you'll notice here that it mentions, as Yolanda talked about, the keeping that small school feel. And we went back and forth because we talked about, I think Ashley, one was lower L at one point, right? And then one was upper L for Lighthouse or something. We would kind of take that in order to make the schools kind of still small and personal. We would now have each wing in these configurations, so there'd be an upper L and lower L. So we'd have a principal for each. Part of the thing when we're looking at how to kind of keep costs down as much as possible, we're thinking we're sending, like, all of our specialist teachers go throughout the building, all the buildings. So they're here on one day, they're here on another building. So we're actually, because we considered kind of rebuilding the elementaries where they're at. And we were like, why are we building 2 gyms? Why are we building 2 art rooms when we have one teacher that's using those between them? And so we can save them by doing this and still keep that small school feel, because you would still have, it would be about the same. And now we can have our support services. So our speech therapists, our counselors, our social workers and so on can now focus on like early elementary and upper elementary. And it just gives us, we can leverage a lot more resources by this, and we'll have fewer people now running throughout the district. And basically the benefits of taking this approach, we're now going to take our oldest facilities that were built in the 50s offline. We're going to go from an average age of our elementaries of 49 years to 9 years. And we're going to reduce our district square footage. By doing that, we're taking about 90,000 square foot of space off line. So that's less cost in long-term maintenance, less cost in cleaning, less cost in all of that. We can balance our district population. So you will have all the elementaries. McCott's will still be the smallest, but with just the growth that we're seeing already with houses going in, that would be able to, we'd have that flexibility to handle that. Same thing, we could correct the geographical concerns. So then I was kind of going through it. Basically, if we took this approach, about 70% of families would be closer to their school throughout it. I mean, definitely at the middle school level, there would be, in elementaries would be closer. And our conservative projection, we'd save about $2 million in operating costs annually, just between the reduced square footage, not having people travel, being able to cover all of that. And through this, we're not rebuilding everything new. We're repurposing about 83,000 of square feet that we've paid for already in the last few years. And so it's basically about 20% of the new facilities will be the existing buildings. So again, just going back to with the other facility improvements, that these are the big concepts. And there's other things that are kind of part of this that we've kind of, again, these are part of strategic planning, band equipment, interior and exterior athletic improvements, auditorium upgrades, interior and exterior arts improvement, secure entries. That was, a lot of that was last month when we talked about the structure, toilet room upgrades, playground, and so on, furniture replacement. So cost, as with anything, when you ask people to dream, this is part of strategic planning. We said, give us what you want, and then we were going to come back and we'll do this with the strategic planning team. We have to fit a certain budget. So if you look at our critical needs for about the next 3 years, there's about 60 million in there with everything. And just kind of to kind of frame this correctly, right now we're working on both of those options. So we're throwing those in there. So there is some overlap. If we have money in there like last month for new secure entries and upgrading secure entries, well, if Lighthouse, depending on what we do with Lighthouse, if we decide to like repurpose part of it, or Ashley, that would be part of the new construction. We're not necessarily doing that. So there are some trade-offs on that. So in that top line number there, the green areas, that's all of the kind of academic needs and wants. But we know we have to fit a budget, and we know that what we can do in order to make sure that there's no additional costs to our taxpayers. That's the number is 167 million. So the process now is we have everybody's wants and all of that is to kind of start whittling that down. So that's the next phase that we're going to talk about is we're going to kind of take these ideas and we're going to look at what are the trade-offs, and then we'll have community focus panels, staff surveys, strategic planning again, where we're going to talk about, is it this or this? What's more important to you? This or this? And so they'll just we'll get all that information presented to the board in May, and that'll be the final proposal for the bonds. So as part of the next phase, I mentioned we're going to gather feedback, we'll engage stakeholders, we'll narrow down those options, and then we'll refine the proposal. And so this is just, again, with what is it, about 60 some people so far in the process, this is going to expand. So by the end of this, when we come to a proposal in May, there'll be hundreds of people that will have had their voices heard on this. I know this is a lot. I know some of it is kind of, it's really groundbreaking and change. It can really a lot to it. So any questions on this so far or input?
One question I had regarding if you did go ahead with new elementary buildings or repurposing, I guess for the amount of money that's going into those, is the front entry or the fascia of the building going to look new? Is that part of the plan? I mean, or are we really just adding pieces on and it still kind of looks to the community, it looks like our original building?
The answer is no. It would, both of these options, I think if you take this pathway, would transform those to the passerby. When it's all done, they would view it as a new building. So I think that simple answer is it would end up being new to the passerby. They may not even realize or know when they walk inside when it's done that some of those parts and pieces are, now in some cases 20 years old, but they would just be folded into the design of the new footprint. So I'm very confident that you wouldn't have that Band-Aid or that, hodgepodge view of these when they're completed.
Okay, thank you.
Just so much information. Unfortunately, it's all piled up today because I've got a million questions, but I've worked with Dale for many years on these bond issues. So we know those buildings pretty intimately. Regarding this issue of elementary buildings, I know we've got newer ones and older ones. I know from a PE standpoint, we ended up putting new gyms in most of the buildings, so they were fairly comparable with Sugar Bush and Naudret. We ended up, in fact, Naudret's got 2 gyms, so we had the cafeteria space. So I guess I respectfully disagree that we don't have really comparable facilities. And again, too, the support services, the buildings were expanded such that support space was available for support services. In fact, at Great Oaks, we expanded that building again to add support services, the buildings. The other question, the other comment I had was regarding, you've got an elementary building right here that's built for an elementary, it's got the space available, it's right in the middle of the north area. Why wouldn't you utilize this? It was designed and built for an elementary, non-administrative building, not for a China facility. Why wouldn't we use this facility? If you need to come up with a building, you got one built. It's not being used for what it was built for. Lighthouse, at one time, Lighthouse was supposed to house administrative, at one time, we were going to bus a lot of kids all along county line north here to McDonald, and the decision was made to expand Lighthouse. In front of Lighthouse was supposed to be all administrative offices at one time. So, I mean, why not put the administrative offices back to Lighthouse? That's another idea. Why tear down the gym and everything at the Lighthouse building, sell it to the city? That's another comment. And at the time when we developed these buildings, at the time we looked at more of a neighborhood schools. Of course, we're not in the neighborhood because historically have got Ashley and Lighthouse right next to each other, but they were close to where the parents were living in many cases. We combined Sugar Bush and Naudret. We didn't make it a huge elementary. We made it back up to around 450, 500. And if you drive down Sugar Bush Road, when school starts, you expand these buildings and make them larger. I understand. I know there's Green School, Lance Cruz took the decision to make large elementary buildings, but you start losing. I know you put 2 principals in, maybe there'll be more touch points with parents, but those buildings are just going to be too large. I mean, the high school is one thing, and we made it large, and sometimes I think probably shouldn't have, but there's a lot of positives there in terms of class offerings. But I don't see making large size buildings, and we've built many of these, and I understand the ADA compliant issues at Ashley. We've always that's a big, it's hard to expand those because they're just narrow things between the buildings, and that's always been an issue. And I understand maybe you have to do some renovations there, tearing out some things, but these buildings are pretty solid buildings. We've built them from the ground up several times. So I don't understand what the problem is with an 80-year-old building that's got good walls. We redo the roofs. We've redone the mechanical in all these buildings. And even when you go out to, whether it's Great Oaks or Great Oaks, we got to redo the mechanical every 20 years or whatever we have to do anyway. So I don't understand this thing, well, the building's 70 years old, we need to make it new. I don't understand that.
Well, and yeah, if I can address some of those, because I've been going around to each of the buildings and meeting with the staff, and I can tell you just from the people that are on the front lines, like the support staff, the number of people that are split for support staff, and it's always been a struggle. Is my understanding. I can't speak for previous years, but trying to schedule the specials to make sure that students have those, and parents feel very strong about having those specials, and so do I. And we have teachers that are going to different locations, and we know we have one gym that doesn't have like a gym floor. It's a tile floor. It's kind of like this. They're not equivalent spaces in that regard. It's the size of the classrooms. This was an issue, if it ever came up, was really this year with trying to social distance, and we just couldn't do that. Just the availability of space with Naudret. We've seen some growth there. And so we have 2 grades that I would love to be able to split. I just don't have a classroom to put them in. Same thing with every single teacher I spoke to at the elementary level in the older buildings are like, I just want a class. I don't want much. I want a classroom that's warm when it's supposed to be warm and cool when it's supposed to be cool, because the heating and all that doesn't work. The lights, it's constant issues with those. And we've been putting, I think, when we did the strategic planning meeting, It's on par of almost $100,000 into some of these buildings to keep those things going. And we can do that for the next like 20 years or so, but at much greater cost, because it's just going to get more and more expensive to do that. Like in Alder, we had a long conversation. Dale can kind of talk about that, even with how do we get that? Because right now where it is, we know people are backed up. So we know that we have to do something in order to get those people off of the road. And by putting in like those other areas, we can kind of really solve two problems at once. And then additionally add those services and yeah, the gymnasium and all that. And so we'll keep that area because that's good. But the classrooms, I know it's just, I had one teacher who was like, I used to be in a room that was something like 1,200 square feet. Now I'm in 700 square feet. I can't do centers. I can't do all the things that I know work best for kids because they're just packed in too tightly. And so our goal is to offer that so that they can all have those opportunities.
Now, the cooling and heating, I know it's just a matter of, we should have done a bond issue 3 or 4 years ago, but I know I get lots of complaints from Great Oaks, which is one of our larger buildings, and it's just that mechanical systems are worn out and they just need to be replaced. So it's not a matter of the building's old, it's because the mechanical systems, like a furnace in your house, needs to be replaced. So I understand the cold and hot and the noisy fans and the rattles, like, because I get complaints about those all the time, but to say I gotta tear a building down because sometimes it's hot and sometimes it's cold, because we haven't been able to, we didn't do a bond issue when we should have, that's my, I guess, comment on that. Now, I want to comment on the CTE stuff. So see, it's a no-brainer to say, hey, I want to put all my programs in one building. I reduce the bus ride, but I look at L'Anse Cruz as Pancow, separate building, correct? Warren Con's got their CTE center over on 15 Mile off building site. And then Phil talked about, well, I'm going to combine, I'm going to get the North kids over with the South kids over at South, and we're going to do robotics, whatever. It's a contradiction that you're going to say, I can't bus high school kids to South, but I can bus North kids to South. Why don't you have a comprehensive, I've got a South building is half capacity. It's 1,100 student capacity. We've got what, 400 or 500 kids there right now. Middle school kids, and we got the CTE programs. Why not make that a CTE? You're going to make a CTE center for middle school. Why don't you make a comprehensive CTE center? Why would I build upon a building when I've got empty space? I guess I would like to see the pros and cons. Why is?
Are you talking about the high school? Is that?
Huh?
The high school adding onto it, or what? I don't understand the question, I guess.
Well, you're saying I'm going to take all my CTE programs out of South and move it back to the high school. Why don't you have all the?
No, I'll tell you, if you recall from the strategic planning meetings, one of the number one things that came from all the parents was they wanted more career opportunities for students. Not only that, they wanted them to start earlier. They wanted them to start as soon as elementary, because again, as Sherry had mentioned, we know just from research about 85% of students have already picked their careers and limited themselves. And we want to be able to give those opportunities because that came loud and clear through that process. And so we were thinking about how can we do that? And we know even like our auto area is not up to par with what an automotive center needs to be. We know that there's the other programs, again, can have that. And then the other thing is just the operational aspect of it. The state is really looking at the amount of travel time that you have and that you can count towards instructional time for those programs. So by shortening that in order to allow the high school students to be there and then add those programs because they need the greater available space, then that's really just makes sense for high school students because now they'll have that. And then now we want to build feeder programs for all of those. And so to do that at the middle school and kind of break down this again, this is something being out in the district, talking to teachers and all that, there's this split between North and South and just the lack of opportunity between those two buildings and where they're at. So the goal is, and this is as Mr. Latona was saying, where we can have kids go back and forth. Now we can take advantage of that and provide more programs for those.
I guess you just need to show me why it's okay at L'Anse Cruz and Warren Con and it's not okay for us. That's all.
So I guess I have a couple of comments as well. In reference to Mr. Middlestat's comment about our HVAC systems. I might be wrong on the high school, but I believe our newest HVAC system is from 2006. I think that came from Corey's presentation at some point. So it's not just a bond issue from 3 years ago. We neglected that stuff 15 years ago. We put it in, gave it a blessing, so we hope it lasts. And now that it's broken, I have teachers and parents and students that are upset about it. Certainly, out of the 4 strategic planning meetings that I attended, that was evident. The parents aren't happy. They're not happy with our facilities. They want upgrades to not only security, but they want upgrades to the electronics and the teaching devices and the laptops. And I mean, everyone's got dreams, and we obviously want to get to as much of those as we can in the next bond. But to keep throwing money into a 60 or 70-year-old building, knowing in 20 years from now, I've got to replace a 90-year-old building. My kids went to Ashley. They had a great experience. The principals and the teachers were all great, but it was very outdated, very small. The ADA thing is a huge issue. Mr. Drew and I were having an ADA discussion about another problem that's existing in this area immediately before the meeting started. Mr. Richards and I think Mr. Drew attended some of the building tours. And I got feedback, definitely from Dennis at our working board meeting on that Saturday. We spent 5, 6, 7 hours here with a longer list of complaints about the buildings and the concerns and the heat and the imbalance and the gym floors and, and all the things that you've kind of mentioned. I personally would support getting those CTE programs to the high school. We have the property, we have the space. We're spending thousands upon thousands of dollars a month transporting kids around the district. If we didn't need to do that, to spend 40 minutes on a bus is kind of crazy for a 2-hour block. Kids, the high schooler is going to go down to the auto shop there at South. He's going to get 40 to 50 minutes of instruction, and he's going to spend 40 minutes round trip on a bus. The high school, I believe, was purpose-built, that there was supposed to be an auto shop put on the back of that at some point. I had just moved in after the high school was open, so I can't really speak to that. As far as the media centers and the school stores and stuff like that, I think we're right on. College campuses and high school campuses are getting away from the traditional, you walk into a cafeteria and you walk down a food line. Those don't exist anymore. Go out and check out college campuses around Michigan. They're building new dining facilities. They're building new collaboration facilities. They're bulldozing libraries, even though, their attendance is down at just about every public university except for Michigan and Michigan State here in the state. They're trying to upgrade their facilities. They're trying to reel in more students. And when I hear, first of all, there's a little bit of a price tag scare because I don't have that whole price tag yet, but we need to upgrade our facilities. Those colleges are upgrading their facilities because they have to be competitive. My son goes to Eastern. He actually got 2 invites as a transfer student to come to Western and to come to Central. Come next week, we want to show you around. That's what's happening in the college market. And I think anything we can do to drive our high school market that way with technology, with those collaborative spaces. I'm not saying to repurpose an entire cafeteria, but if we can go into a media center that is underutilized. I have 2 kids that are college graduates. One's a graduate, one's in. I can't honestly tell you the last time. I can ask my daughter. She graduated at 17. I can guarantee she may have set foot in there maybe once a year. The resources are on laptops, they're at home, they're in their hands. And there still is some usefulness to a media center. I'm not talking about getting rid of it, but moving the school store up there, I don't know. I don't, that's semantics for me. But what we're looking at doing with potentially building a new elementary or potentially 2 new elementaries, I support. We have buildings that our architects and our builders have told us have started to outlive their usefulness, and to keep putting money into buildings that they aren't getting any better. I could put lipstick on a pig all day long, but in 10 years, the building's 10 years older. The bricks are going to start to fall down. The building isn't designed to be around that long. And again, rather than worry about what Lance Cruz is doing and what Warren Conn is doing, let's go look at Birmingham, Rochester, Ann Arbor. Let's go look at districts that we should be chasing. We should be chasing their enrollment and their test scores. Plymouth Canton. They have 2 high schools that are
250 yards apart. The kids change classes and walk in between. So my point is that I've said since I've been on this board, I said when I was running, it's time to up our game. We've been compliant and complacent for 20, 25, 30 years, and our taxpayers want more. They want more sports. They came to us for a 7th grade football team. They want more opportunities for their kids, and if we don't give them to them, they're, again, Rochester's close enough. If you're not happy here, you can certainly drive your kids over to Rochester. It's only a 20, 25-minute ride. Or over to Utica schools, even closer. Go look at what they're doing when they're renovating buildings or when they're building new buildings. They're upgrading that technology. To see, all the boards and everything that was displayed at the Anchor Bay South, just for the purposes of illustration, I know it all comes with a price tag and I can't have it all. But I guess my point is we can't continue to be complacent. I would agree with Mr. Middlestat's point about this building. What can we do to make sure that we're utilizing it and repurposing it? It wasn't purpose-built to be a dormitory for our China Link contract and program. So maybe that's something we certainly should explore. But to hear that there's an opportunity that a 70-year-old building could go away is really exciting to me. That's something I can hang my hat on. Ms. Brookmeyer already, referenced, if we do some repairs and we do some additions, do we get new front entrances? Because people drive by and they look at, they look at North, Middle School North. Well, where the hell is the entrance to the place? Is it facing Willie or is it facing Ashley? Ashley is kind of the same way. We have traffic issues at all of our schools. Exacerbated, I see Mr. Cte out there, rain, snow, sleet, or hail, directing traffic in the morning, trying to keep our kids safe. I see his pictures usually up on the Anchor Bay Facebook page, and he's out there. He's trying to keep our kids safe. So we definitely have some infrastructure issues that, we need to address even at those buildings. But to keep doing parking lots and roofs and HVACs in 50-year-old buildings, 70-year-old buildings, I just don't see it. I want to figure out how to upgrade those facilities, bring more people into the district.
I do have a couple of questions also. First, I'd like to thank everyone that presented tonight. Thank you very much. I noticed we're moving Compass Point or building where Compass Point is. Are we going to move Compass Point somewhere else at the high school? Or?
Yeah, for the time being, it would be in the high school, yes.
All right. But when we bring food services or the new CTE wing, we're building where Compass Point currently is now, right? So then,
yeah, we'd find just another space.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Then the other thing I wanted to mention was during the presentation, I noticed that auto was kind of going behind construction trades. And I'm sure you guys may remember when we were walking around construction trades, one thing that they talked about is they were looking for more outside space. So I just want to make sure if we're going to build, a new auto shop or not auto shop area, I don't want to limit construction trades to having no outdoor space. I know we talk about building houses and things like that. They want more outside space. So, just keep that in mind as we're, looking at relocating auto.
Yeah, the diagrams were quite conceptual, but a lot of those thoughts, ideas, and wishes are baked into the square footage that we're anticipating, which leads to the cost model as well. So everything you just described is part of what we would plan to do.
Beautiful. All right, thank you.
I could, Mr. Jankowski. We exited the lease over at Compass Point, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to echo, Mr. Green's comments, I did, tour a lot of the schools. Every school was concerning to me. I think we talked about it before. So just to echo that, I know, we're talking about a lot of expenditures to better our district, but roofs and bathrooms and flooring, there was a lot of concerns, with the walk-arounds too. So, but thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you for those presentations. And thank you to our staff as well for coming tonight and I know there was a lot of collaboration that went behind all of this. I really appreciate the time that you put into that and to be here tonight. So we'll move on to communications.
We have just one communication. This is from a parent, Joanne Ferguson, who just wanted to make sure that the board was aware and to thank two members of our food service staff, Carrie and Cheryl, for they've just gone above and beyond for her daughter. And just to make sure that her special nutritional needs and everything are kind of fit. So I shared with you that and just want to pass along the thanks to those two as well for all that they've done and just to recognize them for going above and beyond.
Okay. Moving on, we have the consent agenda, which tonight consists of the approval of minutes from the February 23rd regular meeting, the personnel report, the finance report, and the bills payable for February of 22. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Did any of you have a problem opening the financial report? It was probably operator error, but I was struggling to get it to open up. I didn't know if you guys had an issue or not, but.
Financial or bills payable?
At this point, Dennis, it could have been either one. It was a long day on Monday. So did you have a problem opening either one?
Bills payable, yes.
Okay, all right.
On the,
Sorry about that.
on the regular meeting, can we include the slides and the presentation material on the facilities that was presented at that meeting as part of the minutes?
Yeah, we work on the presentations right up to them, but we'll include them
Yeah,
going
'cause
forward. Yeah,
I would, for the minutes for next time, it'd be good to
Yeah.
have that
absolutely.
similar presentation in these minutes.
Yeah, good point.
So in 20 years from now, they'll understand what we did.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Burkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
No.
Mr. DeBrew,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestat,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes.
Motion passes.
Can I have a question on, we had the board workshop, we should probably have minutes. That was an open meeting, right?
Yes, it was.
Probably should have minutes and then at least a package of information that was part of that meeting.
Yeah, that was approved last month.
Huh?
I think those were approved as part of last month, I believe.
It wasn't in the minutes from last. The minutes, it's not in the 223 regular meeting.
Okay,
You guys didn't approve, you didn't have minutes for this at the last, that's my point.
okay.
So we probably.
I'll double check that, but
Yeah, we probably should have minutes for that. That was the Saturday meeting, right?
yes.
Yes, good catch. Thank you. Okay, so new business, we have a few field trip requests. So Anchor Bay High School Forensics would like to attend the Michigan Speech Coaches Incorporated Spring Festival on Mackinac Island at the Grand Hotel, May 19th to 22nd. Up to 10 students will represent Anchor Bay and each will pay for travel, lodging, and the tournament. Additionally, the DECA Vice President, Ishan Jain, the 11th grade student from Anchor Bay High School, will be traveling to Atlanta, Georgia on April 21st to 24th and will be attending the International Development Conference. And middle school north and south teams will be going to the MDOT State Bridge Building Competition. We did get clarification. They will be going to the Grand Rapids location, April 18th and 19th. So the recommendation is that the board approve the field trip to Mackinac for forensics. The DECA vice president attend the conference in Atlanta, and middle school north and south attend the state bridge building competition as presented. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? I will just comment, just for everyone else's knowledge. our DECA vice president qualified to go to the conference in Atlanta. Mr. Jankowski was talking to me about, whether we send a staff member with him, not having an 11th grade student traveling by himself. As what we ended up offering was for his parent to attend with him so that it wasn't just a student and a single staff member alone. So his father will be attending with him for that competition.
Is the staff member attending also?
No.
No. Dad in lieu of?
Dad.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Now we have the non-affiliated wage scale. Presented.
Yeah, I can give you some background on this. As we've been discussing over the last several months, we have many of our non-affiliated staff, the wages, especially in this day and age, when they can go out and they can get jobs that are making much more than like $15 an hour. And so we have, like, for example, our security guards, they begin at $10 an hour. We've had unfilled positions. So what we looked at was kind of modeling it off of what we do with the teachers and everybody else, is structuring it over a, really it would be like a 10-step kind of salary scale for each of them. So we move them up from where they're at over a period of time. And so you can see, for example, that for our security guards, currently they start at $10.40. So we'd move them up and get that to at least a $15 starting salary. And as we did that, then we would drop those like steps. So they'd end up on a salary scale that begins at $15 an hour, and over 10 years, they'd progress up to $20 an hour. And so you're just not going to find people for $10 an hour. And same thing, and it just follows the same pattern. This kind of encompasses about 120 people and through the different support groups. And we're having trouble finding people for those positions. So this would put us competitive with those. And it would, over the next several years, we would be able to get to those positions where we would hopefully be able to fill all those positions that we've struggled to fill. So this is all of those. So it includes our preschool, our GSRP, literacy tutors, academic coaches, Compass Point, technology, Harbor Oaks, homebound services, and so on. And so this is just, they all kind of follow the same exact pattern in order to make sure that these essential positions, that we can provide the services that our community expects and our students need.
I did have a question. It says on the bottom that all leave time is awarded for employees on a use or lose basis and cannot accumulate.
Yes.
I know in the past, probably in the past year or so, we had a situation with a retiring staff member from early childhood who was unaware that they weren't going to be paid out on their leave, and as a result took an extended amount of time, at the end of the year. So I guess, is that common for these types of positions at other districts to be in?
Yeah, typically they do not have anything like that. We are standardizing all of those because as we saw this year, like for example, with like snow days, we already had that in the budget for the snow days that we were planning to pay them if we had school. And if we don't, it's a hardship already for people to, now when we had 3 days back to back, so they lost basically half their pay that week. And so we're going to standardize, that's part of that. We'll standardize that they have sick days because the law requires it, that they'll have some snow days, that they will have all of that. But right now, there's no plan for the payouts.
Are you hiring only, you mentioned trying to track people, but some of these first year wages didn't change much. Do you offer people higher, or you just assume that they'll want to take the
Well,
job because they know they're going to get raises.
Yeah, that's part of it. And we just know over time that we want those to kind of go. We didn't, in order to, again, fit the budget, that it will go up. Because for some of them, they're still, I mean, I have to give people credit. They're still at some of the lower salaries if they haven't seen increases. So we want to make sure that people have steady increases so that we can maintain the people we have.
Okay.
So we're starting them at 15 or you're going to get them to 15?
We're going to, over time, it'll basically take about 3 years. We'll move everybody, we'll start to at least $15. And then what we'll do is so for example, the security guards, after year one, we'll drop step 1, then we'll drop step 2, and then they'll be at 15. And then that'll be the new starting salary. And then it'll move up from there.
What would be the total cost of just taking all these? We gave substantial raises to our teachers, which we needed to, and was totally necessary. And looks like we're going to be doing that for some other groups. To standardize it to $15 an hour right from Jump Street here, what are we talking? We're talking 160 people, but how many people in these specific groups? I see there's only three groups that are underneath $15 an hour currently. What are we talking if we just standardize it and say Anchor Bay is not going to pay less than
over and above
$15 an hour?
what you have here? It would probably be probably $250,000. So over 3 years, everything was budgeted out over
$250,000 in 1 year.
Over probably. I'm just ballparking this.
That's very different than what we were looking at. I mean, that's the cost of like a half a step that we used to look at for.
Yeah, you're right now, you're looking at this, it's just, I think in pure salary alone, over 3 years, just to move them to this point it's close to like 500, I think it's 570,000. So, again, you're not moving everybody at that point if you're to do that. So just a few ones, I'm just kind of ballparking it from having looked at this. So that's over and above. Because the cost that I kind of spelled out for you in the update. So this right here, let's just say I
understand what's in that update. I'm just asking you right now.
Yeah. So then if you wanted to do that and accelerate that so everybody jumps right to 15, you're probably looking at like probably a third or close to half of that over again.
Wouldn't it be just you've got the annual increase over 3 years, it would probably just be those totals then, right? The added costs, because you got 21,000, 33,000. So if you advance it forward, that's what would cost you more up front.
Yeah. If you,
33, 50.
So it'd be 170,000.
Yeah.
Judging 170 to 180,000.
Yeah, and then you have everything else that goes with that. So pension and so on and all that. Yeah.
Would that be 170 plus the 66 or 170 all in, John?
That looks like 170, well, 170 plus wages plus that.
Yeah.
But we talked about when we did the teacher's contract and we did these tiered contracts where we did these substantial raises for current teachers and put the new teachers on a new scale. We need to do this for all of our groups and to get to we know it's a problem. It's been a problem since I've been on this board that trying to get security guards, trying to get maintenance professionals to do the job for these raises. That's you're putting it off 3 years in some cases. So if we were able to, I know it flies in the face of what we were talking about a year ago, but I've been telling the rest of the board's probably sick of me hearing me say this, but our budget seems to have gotten really good. And I'm not saying we need to spend all the money, I'm not saying that, but I think if we're gonna take care of our people, which we need to, and I fully support what we did with the teachers, and I fully support admins and everybody, but I fully support the rest of our people, and I've said it here 2 years ago, got laughed off the stage by some, is to set that standard of $15 an hour, I think would set us to Patrick's part about raising the standard over here at Anchor Bay. People would be coming here and you'd get the best of the best in those arenas to start here. So if there's a way to do that, I would like to see this board
be leaders in that and stand behind the working people of this district and do that right from Jump Street.
Or compromise and do a one, instead of three, do a one step. I mean,
Well, and the other part of it is, we were holding off on this because I was waiting for next year's, like, to have clarity on next year's budget. So we only have the governors, and we'll talk about this when we get to the legislative update. I only have that one. The House and the Senate have been dragging their feet on things. So once we have clarity on that, I would feel a lot more confident on that. It's just because I think the budget's going to be pretty good. So that's why we kind of took a more measured kind of approach on that.
Well, to the question is, that's the exact question I asked you when we were in the, I don't want to get into, when we were talking about the contracts for the teachers is, and again, fully support them getting the money, but a lot of the stuff that we did, was, do we have the money to do this? And we got all the one-time funding and we're doing this and the budget looks good and the numbers look good of enrollment when they, a year ago or 2 years ago, they didn't. So, again, I not understanding schools completely, I guess, and that's what confuses me when we're talking about these buildings. And I didn't speak tonight because I want to go back and look at everything and maybe even meet with you to really understand that completely. But it seemed to be when we were doing those contracts, we knew, and we were not new, you never do completely, but we were pretty confident our budget was solid and we wanted to take care of our men and women. And that's all I'm saying is if we can do it, let's do it.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. Remember, we did the teachers, we stretched that over 5 years to kind of hit that transition. So this was a little bit more aggressive, and I understand. I understand that the wages are lower and all that, but in essence, I'm not opposed to that, but
Is some of this also, like, I'm just wondering if part of it being a 3-year proposal, are you keeping like the differentiation between the pay of these groups, like different over those 3 years? So while you're bringing maybe some that aren't making 15 an hour up to 15, but maybe those that were making more than that or around that are still getting a raise. Is that why it was also?
Yeah, so they're sliding up because if again, we're
kind of
putting
keep them
people
relative to one another.
Yeah, that's part of it. And the other part is we also have the experience factor that we're going to try and put in as well, because we've had people who have been here and they've been doing it. So then they'll kind of slide up, and that's kind of how we came up with the scale. So yeah, this was kind of like our first kind of approach for that, looking at it, hey, it's over 3 years, and because the whole goal, like even the concept with like the other contracts, it's to try and make sure that we can have everything covered in what was the increase from last year at this point. And so we can do that over like 3 years or 5 years and so on, kind of like I outlined, so that it's everything's kind of paid for already. And yeah, we can, and then, so we can get to the point where we can make sure that salaries are competitive, that we can fill those positions. And then the other half of it is then we can go back and then look at, do we need to add like security guards at some places? And do we need to put supplies in the classrooms and expand all of that? So this was just our first kind of going so that we can do something kind of like immediately, and then we can always look at that again.
So would you be open to, I mean, because this is obviously laid out for us right here with a sure footing number. If we have, are these pay raises to start next school year for these or right away?
The one of the conversations that we had was that we could potentially, since it's late in the year, we could offer those like immediately and then just continue them into the next year.
So would you be open to, if the board was open to approving this tonight, but then maybe coming back with an accelerated timeline?
I guess
or, we can either take another step depending on when, a budget, if that happens to be out, or if not, if whatever is put together, and the board can decide if that's, we're gonna increase it one more time, or we're gonna move it now compared to later.
I mean, I hate to, I agree with what you're saying, and you make some good points, and I know that we talked about that even with the teacher's contract as far as how you make it equitable across all groups and the newer teachers and, you know, and it wasn't gonna be across the board. It's just not possible at all times to do that. And I'm not saying we weren't concerned with it, but we didn't let that stop us from doing what we did there. And we know that this has been a problem since I've been on the board. We've had trouble with lifeguards. I mean, we're trusting them to save the lives of kids, and we're paying them $10 and $11 an hour. Again, I know the security guards, I know that's an issue, and I know the maintenance, absolutely, the janitors and stuff are a problem. So I think we know the problem's there, and I get getting some today and getting your bite at the apple and trying to come back at it, but I think as far as looking towards the budget, we were confident enough with the other groups. I think we need to personally just stand behind these guys, these workers. And if it raises up some people where they're equal to a person that's been here 3 years, hopefully they'll look at it as they're bringing out the standard of living for everybody that works here. And we're gonna do them as much as we can, for as everybody as we can. But I think that really sets us apart, I would say, especially when I can tell you in our local, we seen it with our apprentices. We were paying them low and we had to raise it. Our contractors even came to us and we raised them up. And it kind of threw off our scale of our first year apprentices, got a lot bigger raise and brought them closer to second year. But that's what you had to do. You got to get people in the door and you got to get people here. So I would just ask the board for their, if they believe in that, to do that tonight. And, or maybe we need to have you go back and get some numbers and we have a special meeting. Yeah, if I'd like to do it as ASAP. So
I guess I would suggest, if you look at, there's 3 of them we're looking at. Security guards, by the 3rd year, it's 15. Why don't we, for aquatics, just shift it 1, so the 3rd year they're making 15. And the preschool just shift it over, so they're making 15 at 3. So within 3 years, everybody's making 15. You just shifted 2 people over 1 step.
So I have a couple of comments. One, on your spreadsheet under holidays for instructional tech, you have 215 days under the holiday column. Is that a misprint?
No, yes, that would be a misprint.
I'm sorry?
Yes, it would be a misprint.
Okay.
Yes.
So we need to get that corrected. And the other question I would have, because I've changed how I feel about contracts and negotiations just in my personal life and business life, but also here. What about catastrophic closures of the school district? So we close down again for a full month. And our instructional techs aren't working, our security guards aren't working. How is that going to be handled in the future? Does the contract specifically address?
No, these are all non-affiliated, so there's no
contract. So there's no expectation of pay outside of any type of paid time off or vacation they may personally submit.
And again, like if it's handled, like before, remember the state mandated that you had to continue to pay people. So.
Right, they reimburse us for that, right?
Yeah. So, well, they assumed that you were still getting your funding, so to use that. So that, again, that would fall under that. But these, that's why they're not affiliated, because they have no bargaining unit.
My last comment is I would agree with Mr. Middlestad and Mr. Drew about trying to get our wages up, but I can't vote yes on that tonight until I see the number, because I've heard 170, I've heard 170 plus you got to load it, which is probably 50%.
Yeah.
Obviously Todd and Robin aren't here to maybe speak to that a little more, but I agree with you guys. I don't think I can make a move tonight, John.
So we table this and then table the administrator's contract so you get more information.
I totally.
It's all money, right?
And I'll say I'm on the same page. I have no problem with what you said. And I agree with you. I completely agree. I just, learning from our last experience, just want to see it on paper in a spreadsheet.
Well, you want to table, Mr. Middlestad, all 3, the principals, the supervisors, and the district office?
We're talking about, we're not trying to we don't understand.
Man, I'm okay with that. If that's what you want.
No, my question is we can't make a decision on this because we don't know where the money's at, but then we're talking about approving other contracts. Is that the same thing or not? I just asked.
No,
Make a motion.
I just, real quick on that, and then we can table, we can do whatever. To what you said, I totally agree with you, and I'm not suggesting we make a move when we don't fully know the numbers and we don't fully know what we have. My issue, I guess, to that point is we did that already, and I thought we knew our financial position. So my issue right now is, if we don't, why did we do what we just did a month or two ago? And I understand in the past couple of weeks, and I apologize to the board, I've been out of the box because of work and stuff, but that was an issue before, not an issue. The projections we looked at, student enrollment was going up. Before it was going down. Every year I've been on this board, they were talking the age of kindergarten, the number of kindergartners isn't matching the number of graduating seniors. And so that may be gun shy to what we did our first contracts on this board. And now we went real quick, is we did a 5-year contract, substantial raises. We did shadow steps or whatever you call them, and we gave substantial raises to current teachers. Tiered contract, I don't like them, but we did it. And I asked the question, are we sure that our finances are good and we're gonna be able to pay for this and we're gonna do that? So, and I said at the time, hopefully if we're doing this, because I was gonna push for $15 an hour. And you even brought it up yourself. You said you knew we needed to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which you are, and I appreciate all the hard work you're doing. Don't take this as, you're doing a great job. If we didn't know that, I guess I can't get past it. If we didn't know it then, why'd we do that? So right now, let's get the information, let's come back here and let's talk about it. But let's definitely not settle more contracts.
Yeah, let me kind of clarify some things on that. No, we know where our budget is at. And when we first had this conversation about this, we had talked about, hey, we're going to kind of square away the teachers for 5 years, and that's in order to make the transition, that we're going to get to this. And so my perception was I was being more aggressive than what we did with the teachers. We did that over 5 years, and we put that into 3 to get them there. And the feedback seemed to be from the board that, okay, well, if we can do that, that's great. So that's why I came with this. Now, we weren't looking at doing it like right off the bat, and I'm not necessarily opposed to it. We can crunch the numbers on that in order to do that. Do I think that if I'm a betting person on what the state's going to come out with? Yeah, I think that we would be able to do it. Now, I know Robin and Todd are probably at home screaming at their computers, but it's, and it's what you need to do. I just thought that, and maybe it's just because I'm new, like still I'm trying to read everybody. I thought this was going to be a challenge because I thought it was being overly aggressive to try and move things up. I didn't think that, I was like, oh, there's almost no way that if we went right to 15 that people would buy it. So that's on me for that.
Well, I gotta ask, is to say what we did with the teachers wasn't aggressive when you go off of, at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, if something changed from, you gave us the list of all the teachers and all the raises and all the percentages of what it was gonna be, those were substantial raises in year 1. And
for some, not
correct, for some. And again, I this, please, teachers, don't take this as I'm coming attacking. I'm not. You deserve every dollar of it. And you deserve it for what you do every day and for what you did through COVID. But the rest of the district does too. And that's why, again, I'll go back to it. I'm not just trying to say me. I know many people up on this board believe this, is we didn't want to leave anybody behind, and we wanted to be, if we're going to give these good raises and we got this money and everything's looking good, and you're doing a lot of great things, and as far as like with the combining the schools, and we're tackling a lot of things, and tonight's presentation was awesome. I can't even take it all in yet to be able to really come back with some good comments, but I'm not trying to attack you tonight. I'm just saying that I don't want you to say, I don't want it to be perceived tonight that I'm trying to be more aggressive with the smaller groups than I am with the teachers, because we were aggressive with them too. And we made up a lot of wrongs of the past this year. And let's do it with these people. That's it. And I know I'm beating a dead horse, but that's all I'm trying to get to. And maybe I don't understand school budgets as much as I should, but that's the, and I'll do the best I
No,
can.
just to put it into comparison for the thing. So remember, with the teachers, we wanted to move up because we know there's a shortage of teachers and we have to get competitive with that. But remember, you have there's about 300 teachers. 2/3 of them were at top step. Now, those that are at the top step had been getting about 1%, less than 1% on average. So the 2/3 of them are only getting 1.25% over the 5 years. Okay. The total cost per year for the teachers, just in salary terms, so not all the ancillaries and all that, is about $650,000. Okay. So that's about 3 times the number that you have here. So that's why that's kind of just so you understand the logic that we're coming at. So you have about 1/3 of the group here, and it's about 200,000 a year. So again, we're trying to keep that same kind of ratio, because remember, for the average teachers, even over the cost is 3.5% total for that group. What we're already recommending here is close to, for some of them, it's going to, like for the security guards, we did that. And I'm not necessarily opposed to that but it's 50% that you're looking at. So that's what we were trying to fit within that 3.5% that we kind of, in order to make sure that works. Now, I know that this is going to be, so that was kind of how the logic that we were taking that. And we were a little bit more aggressive on this in order to fit it into 3 years to get there instead of 5, like we did with the teachers overall. So that's just, I'm not saying that I just wanted you to understand the logic of how we approached it when we looked at it as part of that.
And I agree with that. And I would say, at least by the percentages, and if they change, you can let me know.
Yeah.
There were some teachers that were up in the 35 to 40%.
Over the life of it, yes.
Over in the first year. On the one. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll show you afterwards, I'll go through it with you. And then as far as when you talk the total cost of 600 and some thousand, 2/3 of the teachers are top step, they're getting the lowest that percentage. So the bulk of that 650 is coming from 100 teachers, because we got roughly 300 teachers, correct?
Yeah.
So the bulk of them is 100. So the same number of people, in comparison, we're talking 126 people, you said total combined, this roughly represents. At top end, we're talking 250, and we'll get the numbers. I'm just saying it's relative to what we're doing, and so I just think it's right and just for us to do it.
So it sounds like there might be an appetite for a motion here.
Well, hang on, because we also got to make sure we leave room for our lit tutors who really kind of didn't get any notification, and honestly, we could have kept the schools open without them. And now we're looking at giving everybody else raises again, and you're going to pass over a whole nother work group.
No, lit tutors are in here.
They're in there. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. I must have missed
This is
that.
pretty much
This is everybody.
Yeah, this is everybody who's not part of the bargaining unit.
And Mike, to that point, that's why I said across the entire district, $15 an hour. I ain't forgetting about it, a soul in this district.
Yeah, I think Mr. Jankowski was being aggressive in his mind. I think we all had a different, maybe not all, but I think a lot of us had a different view of what aggressive was. Like if it could be done tomorrow, like bring everyone up. Yes, we're going. So I'm in agreement. I see where the disparity was, and I don't think anyone was wrong.
I just remember at the end of the discussion, it was like, if we can get there in the next few years, I was like, okay, well, here's how we get there.
Yeah, well, no, we meant tomorrow.
I didn't know. I thought it was years, not months, but that's fine.
I think we're all on the same page now, so good.
I'll make the motion to table this discussion till special called meeting that the president will call upon consultation with the superintendent or our next meeting, if that's a feasible motion.
Is that just for the non-affiliated?
No, I believe Mr. Drew would probably want items 5, 6, and 7.
And 5, 6, and 7
I wanted to
as well.
clarify that.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
And I'll support that, sir, if you agree with item 2, and then 5, 6, and 7 being tabled to the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion on tabling that motion?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do. So I'll have to apologize now. I have a conflict the next meeting. And I don't want my employees to think that I bailed on them because it was going to be a tense conversation or something, but I already know I will not be here for the next meeting.
How about if it's with the indulgence of the board, I would say, if the board president and superintendent can get together, get those numbers, maybe we have a quick finance committee meeting in short order here. Look at them, see what it's going to do, come back, have a special called meeting and try to take action on all these things.
My challenge is I'm stepping away from Michigan from March 31st to May 1st. I'll be gone the entire month of April.
Well,
So I'd love to do that because I think that'd be a great way to resolve it, but
These
again, I won't be able to
wages don't-
participate.
The new wages don't start till next year anyway, correct?
No, he wants to.
Well, yeah, the initial thought was that, because you remember, we're still under state supervision.
Right, so the pay raise was the number 2 step, right? Is that what?
Yeah, well, yeah, they would be on, no, it would be on, it.
I wouldn't be getting.
So like security guard would go from 1040 to 1211.
So the new, if we were doing $15 would start next year, is that what?
Well, yes,
Unless we do it-
that's the
unless we do
direction
it
of the
right now.
board. Yeah, yes, I would, yeah.
I'm just looking for what's the immediacy that we have to do within the next 2 weeks.
Well,
That's what I'm asking.
yeah.
I think the immediacy is, he was looking at, if we can do this for him before the end of the year would be a good deal. Mr. Green, in our offline conversation, well, as we said, we can have a finance committee meeting, so everybody knows what was set up here is, we can have a finance committee meeting, he can,
I can remote in.
Involved remotely and participate is the word I was looking for. Participate remotely, and we can bring the numbers back to the board and have a either at the next board meeting or a special call to take care of this and do that. So all that written down for you there, Ms. Burke.
You didn't get any of it.
Wait, Ms. Knox.
Yeah, that's just part of the motion. So the motion was to table items 2, 5, 6, and 7 for the moment. And any other discussion on that?
Just a statement that I don't like the fact, sorry, I don't like holding the administrator's contract hostage. I think we could probably have passed that tonight and still made the $15 an hour minimum. That's just my thinking, but
And
it's
again,
just a statement.
just to point that out, those agreements are for next year as well. There's nothing.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
start immediately.
Yeah, there's no start for this year.
Okay.
That was the motion, yes.
Okay, the motion is to table items 2, 5, 6, and 7. Motion was made by Mr. Drew, supported by Mr. Green. Mr. Drew?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes.
Mr. Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Middlestat?
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes.
Motion passes. Okay, we do still have item number. We have to choose a MISD budget review delegate. So each year, the ISD holds their budget review meeting, asking every school district to send a representative for the presentation regarding county services, programs, and budget review. This year's meeting will be on April 21st at 6:30 at the MISD. So it is recommended that we make a motion to approve a board member to be the delegate to such meeting. Just for your reference, April 21st is a Thursday. At 6:30, I know Mr. Green said he will not be here. I also have another engagement that evening. So I don't know if there's somebody that would like to offer themselves up.
I'm actually open and I can do it that night.
I'll make a motion that Mr. Drew attends on April 21st.
I'll say one of the few nights I'm open.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Don't send her my way.
Congratulations. Okay. And then we also have award recommendations. So the Anchor Bay School Districts have requested bids to purchase 26 computer state workstations for food service, point of service computers. The new computers will replace the old service workstations, cash registers, and the key entry pads, and 10 computers for the staff kitchens. The recommendation is that the board award the computer workstation purchase to Seahine
Yes.
in the amount of $47,325.88 as presented. Is there a motion to accept this recommendation?
I'll make a motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. We have board comments or points of pride. Mr. Middlestat will start.
I'll pass.
On to Mr. Drew.
Dennis,
What's your-
No, that's all right. I'll save it for you. The congratulations to all the Kaleidoscope winners. The Cte Recognition, 2 students, that was great. It was a great start to this meeting with all those. What's going on here, Tom? Tim, sorry. Lisa. And congratulations to all the teachers of the year. Like I said, great way to start this meeting. The one athletic that you might not have on your form, maybe you do. Just wanted to acknowledge Thomas Westfall, went to New York, finished 3rd in that, I think the 1600, and ran the fastest mile ever for an Anchor Bay student. So congratulations to him. And was in here down at the high school yesterday for a parent meeting for soccer. It was great to see all the spring sports getting started. The baseball team was in there, and just looking forward to those sports getting out there and seeing some more good Anchor Bay sports. So, and I want to thank the board for their, last about the last month for me has been tough at work, and losing your phone on a roller coaster in Universal Studios was not the best. I did get it back, so I'm catching up, but I just want to thank everybody for their patience with me. So thank you.
Yes, I would like to congratulate the teachers of the year. Great job, it was well deserved. And then congratulate the kids with the Kaleidoscope. Thank you guys for the board update and all the information, the administrators. I appreciate all the information and the speeches. And as far as a point of pride goes, I guess we had something going on at Great Oaks that one of our officers and a parent actually saved someone's life. And it was, I can't think of anything to be more proud of than that. They noticed somebody having trouble and they stepped in, and because of them, it could have been a whole lot worse. So I just like to applaud them, and I just don't think there's anything you can be more proud of than somebody that did that. So good. Pat.
I too want to thank Officer D and the staff over at Great Oaks. It really kind of lends itself to the fact that we really need a full-time school resource officer at Middle School North. We need to find that number in our budget, that money in our budget. I know we've only got 2 days with Detective LeBeau now, and I think she makes an impact when she's there. So somehow figuring out how to bear that salary would be great. I also want to thank our Teachers of the Year. I went over and thanked Ms. Glassford and Mr. Ricky because I know them personally. They taught my daughter. And I thank Mr. Ricky. They're both involved with student council. My daughter was big into student council and all that stuff. And she is, and I say it all the time, I'm very proud of her if you can't tell. She is where she is because of them, because of their involvement, because they got her out of her shell, because they got her to run for student council and actually win. So, I thank both of them personally. And I attended the Anchor Bay Sports Boosters last Saturday. So that was a good time. I think they raised quite a bit of money. Congratulations to Coach Kevin, our soccer coach there. He makes a hell of an MC for a very, very lengthy event. But it was a good time by everybody. And in particular, my points of pride this month actually go out to Coach Morissette and his wrestling team. I personally saw them involved with 2 events. The first event was the polar plunge at the Winterfest. Coach Morissette has his guys down there, and they actually set up the track to get out on the ice and make sure no one's slipping and falling, and they actually do a little bit of crowd control, which I'm sure the police department helps. So thank you for that. And then quickly behind that, I saw him personally out there with his team, picking up barricades from the Strev strut that took place, I think maybe, 12th, 13th. It was that Saturday morning. And to get kids up at 8 a.m. to come do work at 9 a.m. for free was pretty impressive. And to that end, I would actually challenge all of our other coaches. If you're a coach in this district, why don't you give Mr. Morissette a call and find out how he gets his guys out to these events? They're setting up tents, they're taking down tents, they're working mild security, if you will. And again, they're volunteering for these opportunities. And I would love to see, Coach G, I'd love to see our baseball coaches out there. Get your kids motivated and get them to understand that community involvement is very important. And also fits nicely on your college application for assisting in all these, good fellows, setting things up, tearing things down around town in New Baltimore and in Chesterfield. I challenge all of our coaches. Again, I see Coach Morissette and his guys once a month out at an event, donating their time and their energy to help out to make their community a better place. And I would challenge all of our coaches to do that.
I, along with Mr. Green, Ms. Brookmeyer, and Mr. Jankowski, got to attend the Sports Boosters reverse raffle this year. From what I've heard, I know they had record ticket sales, and from what I've heard, the numbers aren't all in, but they were looking at almost doubling their highest ever. So that's great for our athletics program. Great for our board. We have a new Sports Boosters board president who's been phenomenal. The whole board has, so that's been great. A point of pride, it's kind of a very broad point of pride, is I've been in the schools the last couple of weeks for March's Reading Month, and I've been reading Walter the Farting Dog. Our students and their classrooms and the teachers, everywhere I go, they have such a great energy. You can tell these students are relaxed and they feel safe in every single classroom. And that they felt comfortable walking me to another room. So that was really big for me, just to see that every building I went to, it just felt like a family. And it was really nice, especially our students felt free to ask questions. Some of them actually knew what a school board was. I had a gentleman in Miss Forrester's class ask if the board could consider, actually he asked if we had the power to extend recess and lunch by 5 minutes. I told him I would bring it up with you all, but we tried to focus on academics. And he said, okay. So they asked if we could, Miss Forrester's class would like us to take care of that.
So moved.
So moved, okay.
Since there's no closed session, I figured I'd take a little longer tonight.
You don't say.
Kidding. Congratulations to our host of state competitors and the 8 students who achieved state finalists. The 8 students are Eva Dixon, McKenna Summers, Emily Saski, Isabella Moses, Katie Puffel, Danielle Davidson, Elena Cachola, and Grace Schwartz. The senior scholarship basketball game is on April 20th at 6:30 PM. Don't be late. I'd like to thank all the students that participated in the virtual Macomb Student Diversity Summit. Thank you to the Elliott family from Great Oaks for putting together 90 birthday kits and donating them to McCont's as part of the Feed the Bay program. I'd like to recognize the students at McCont's that raised over $8,000 for the American Heart Association with the Kids Heart Challenge. Awesome job. The Aquatic Center is providing swim lessons for all students. This program includes lessons for toddlers, preschool students, and students of all ages. The center is also offering triathlon swim training. Congratulations to the Anchor Bay High School mock trial team on their victory at the Macomb Regional Mock Trial Tournament. I'd like to congratulate Captain of the Month at North, Sharon Ramsey. Thank you for everything that you do for our district. I'd like to thank the Hosta Club for visiting Lighthouse Elementary for educating students on how to properly wear a seatbelt and how to be a good passenger. Save this date also, Saturday, April 23rd. Join us for a district-wide beautification event. Patrick won't be there, he's in Florida. The Anchor Bay, yes. The Anchor Bay Education Association, A Night at the Races fundraiser is Friday night, May 6th. All proceeds benefit the ABEA Scholarship Fund. Congratulations to our business professionals that competed in Grand Rapids. We have 2 students, Zach Carr and Taylor Sazna, who will be competing in Dallas, Texas in May. Good luck. Congratulations to the high school 9th grade symphonic band, cadet concert band, symphonic band, and wind ensemble. Of the 15 performance grades, they received 10 A's. The 9th grade symphonic band received 9 A's, and the symphonic band received 15 A's with 1 A+. And the wind ensemble received 14 A's. Great job by all. Anchor Bay is still hiring. We have positions in food services, SAC, which is our school-age childcare program, custodians, prepare, lunchroom help, along with other substitutes district-wide. Congratulations to our Anchor Bay School DECA chapter is on Jane. I wrote the record books for Anchor Bay at DECA for the first time in Anchor Bay history. He won the office of Michigan DECA Vice President of Business Partnerships. Him and Jacob Tysick both were awarded medals for their comprehensive exams. They were overall finalists. I'd like to congratulate Middle School South Core for earning all ones in their core festival and going to states. Nice job. The Cooking Club at South Session 3 still has some open spots. I also hear they have some celebrity guests participating in Session 3. One of you guys. The annual dodgeball tournament is this Friday at North. Games start at 5 PM. All teams will be battling for the 2022 Dodgeball Champion title. Admission benefiting the ABA Scholarship Fund. I don't know if this event is open for adults. I think it's children only.
Dodgeball is open for.
I think some of the teachers are.
To watch, yes.
Why did we sign up? All right.
No, you can't play.
All right.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Jeremy Zidzik, who finished 13th at the Division I Boys Swim Finals. He also broke his own school record in the 100-meter breaststroke. Congratulations to the Anchor Bay cheer team with a first ever district championship and a 9th place finish at regionals. Congratulations to junior Greg Larson on winning the singles championship at the 2022 Macomb County High School JV Boys Bowling Championship. The Anchor Bay Softball Instructional Clinic is Saturday, March 26th. My point of pride this month is the Anchor Bay Teachers of the Year. Congratulations to Phil Rickey from the high school, Sarah Kessel Glassford from Middle School North, and Trina Hunt from Great Oaks. Thank you for everything you do for our district.
As others said, I attended the Sports Boosters Reverse Raffle. That was a really great time. Congratulations to our Teachers of the Year, the CTE students, and the Kaleidoscope winners. I'm going to keep it brief, but my point of pride is our parents this month. Going to that Sports Booster, that event was just out of this world. Took a lot of collaboration, a lot of, community donations. And I think our district is what it is, whether it's our Kaleidoscope winners, the support we give our teachers because of the parents and the families in this district. So my point of pride will go to the parents tonight. All right, we will move on to legislative update.
Legislative update, there's just three things I wanted to highlight. One was just to point out again from the governor's education budget. I gave you a list of everything that's in there. But the one highlighted thing is, and this is kind of corresponds with the bond, that they are allocating and there's some bipartisan support for this. I'll be interested to see if the House and the Senate has this $1 billion towards an infrastructure fund for schools, because again, the average age of schools in Michigan is about 46 years. And their timeline is basically 60 years is when the costs become greater than if you were to build new. So then they would allocate that. So again, it's something to keep in mind with the bond, is that we can possibly qualify for some of that funding as well. The second item, Senate Bill 618. I've mentioned this several times, but it's finally been passed. It's amazing because it was almost unanimous. I think it was the vote. It was a bipartisan support. We knew we had bipartisan support. So when you do a bond, you go into the school bond loan fund. And right now the state has always had to charge you 3%. So now this makes the change. We haven't gotten all the details on it, but it would knock that down to whatever the cost is plus 1/8%. So for example, if you look at, this is from the Senate analysis, the average cost of borrowing funds right now is about 1%. So that would save us 2%. It would save us a significant amount of money. So remember, I think it was October, we talked about we were possibly going to refinance some bonds. Now we don't necessarily have to do that. So we don't have to incur that cost of refinancing those. And again, if we do a bond, the cost of doing that would be significant. It would basically be reduced by about 2/3 in the loan costs themselves with doing that. Last thing is, this is just a recently introduced bill. Senate Bill 969, and this is again with a teacher evaluation. So I don't know if this is going to necessarily pass, but everybody's kind of struggling what to do with evaluations, especially coming off of last year, because it's supposed to be student growth. Last year they did a 1-year reprieve where they knocked the data component down to 25%, but then it goes back up to 40%. So this is just something we're monitoring and kind of talking to legislators and so on in order to kind of get some kind of clarification on that, because the law is ramped back up, and most districts are struggling with the growth data component because you have to use the most recent 3 years. Well, you have last year, which was a tough year. You don't have any data from the year before, and then you have your last year before COVID. So that's kind of the impact. So that's a legislative update.
That is it for tonight with our tabled items. So,
Madam President, the closed session is on the agenda. Rather than amend the agenda, can we move on going to a closed session just so we close the loop? As in, I am making a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Open Meetings Act 8C to review negotiations. Just support it. Support. Thank you. It's a formality, but it's on your agenda, so we need to cover it. I see what you're doing.
all right. Any discussion? Go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Green,
No.
Mr. Moses,
No.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
No.
Mr. Richards,
No.
Mr. Drew,
No.
Mr. Middlestat. I'm sorry, Mr. Middlestat,
No.
Ms. Knox, no.
All right, motion fails. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Move Drew, moved, seconded by Moses. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting adjourned at 10:13.